Hello and welcome to episode 88 of the Movies in a Podshell podcast, the podcast where we take a theme and we pick two films to fit that theme. And this week's theme is action stars. As always, I'm joined by the Terminator of video. You can call me John.
Poor.
I know.
I mean,
what would you be? The T what? Like, because obviously there's the T800 and then there's a T1000, then there's a TX, which is
do you remember
the woman.
Isn't like the T600s the ones that are like the skin jobs before, where they've got like the rubber skin?
The T600s.
Yeah, they're the ones like they're in Terminator Salvation, but you hear about them in the first Terminator film.
Do you know what's really horrible? The fact that they call them skin jobs.
Yeah,
the T600 is the suit perform. Yeah, they are. You are right. Yeah, they're kind of like
they look human enough from afar.
Yeah,
but then when they get close, they don't. But anyway, I don't know how I got onto this. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, well, it's been a little while since we've recorded. Obviously, as you can see from the pod, John's back from his holiday to an undisclosed location at an undisclosed time.
I went to Malaga to see the lights. It was lovely.
Oh, yes. Do you know
it was
what's
genuinely really good. I really enjoyed it. Really nice time. So it was really good. Yeah.
It's quite annoying. Sorry, this is Monday night and this is a Coke Zero.
I know, it's so sad, isn't it?
It's sad.
Everyone's on the softies tonight. But that's
well,
fine.
everyone's on the softies for January, aren't they? Mostly. It was really sad because obviously I've just been to Malaga as well, but I went the week before and we kind of mistimed it because usually I go when the lights go on for Malaga as well. But apparently we didn't know when it was. We just assumed it'd be the same weekend as last year, but actually what they do is it's the last Friday of November is when it's on.
That's right.
So there we go then. But yeah, no, it's good. Have you had a nice little break?
I have. I've actually managed to watch some things which aren't pod films, which is good.
Good. That's
however,
great.
there's been some rewatches. I messaged Jamie over Christmas because my dad watched Home Alone for the first time. He asked to watch it.
Wild.
And
that he's never seen it.
I know. But then I thought it's not that wild because I thought, well, I never saw it. So I would only watched it with him.
They're both as wild as each other.
I didn't see it till 2016 when I was a grown adult, and Harriet showed it to me. But anyway, it's fine. So that was good. It was nice sharing the Home Alone love. I also, like many people in the UK, we're kind of on what we're watching. It's fine. I don't know if Jamie likes Wallace and Gromit. I can't remember if we've ever even spoken about it before, but I loved Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, which was done between BBC and Netflix. Nick Park, the creator's back again, and Vengeance Most Foul brings the penguin back. Wallace and Gromit was a massive part of my childhood, especially the second and third ones, which was Close Shave and Wrong Trousers. Yeah. Like, I actually remember Dad had them recorded off like a BBC showing before.
I had that with the Wrong Trousers and stuff.
Yeah, so my memory is for like a Close Shave that it's the Antiques Roadshow and it's a woman looking at a Barbie doll just beforehand. Do you know what I mean? It's just so random.
Yeah. You keep going. I'm just my camera's having a little bit of a mess at the moment. That's why I need an actual camera. It's not having a mess.
It looks fine to me.
It keeps saying like device struggling to record, etc., etc. So you watched Wallace and Gromit, which I always found quite scary. The little penguin is well scary.
Yeah, but do you know what I noticed? He blinked a lot more in the original one. He didn't blink much in the new one. But no, Vengeance Most Foul was great. I love the fact that they stick to the animation style. You still get to see some thumbprints here and there, but they just update it. They do use some CG now to like help ease processes. Like water was always really hard for them to do, but they can like do CG tears and stuff to make it easier. And they get to do some wackier camera moves. But they were saying like back in the day, you know, you could do like a whole. You know, you'd be lucky to get a second's worth of film out of it, of like the animation, because it's stop motion, so you take a picture, then you move a bit, you take a picture. But they had to take it to a lab, because obviously before digital you couldn't see the picture instantly, but it's so much easier for them now because they shoot digitally. Like they can preview back as they go, so there's less mistakes. But part of the charm for me is those little mistakes in the other ones. I love the film.
Is there mistakes in the other ones then?
Same mistakes, it's
like
just
continuity errors and stuff.
It might have just jolted slightly more than normal. Like they're aiming for that perfection, but like for me, that's part of the charm. But no, absolutely adored it. Really, really enjoyed it.
I need to watch that because I've been kind of like I turned my nose up at it a little bit. I think, which is a bit bad for me actually. But
they always have really good film references. Like every one of them has like something. So like the previous one, the loaf one, I remember not being that keen on because it came out when I was a teenager, so it was like the wrong time. And I watched that back. The whole end sequence is aliens. You know, like Power Loader versus Thingo, and it's just it's just good fun. And even like, just lots of little nods here and there. I also watched a film I normally religiously at Christmas, Jamie and I before did Christmas films that aren't Christmas films that we watch around Christmas. And the ones I went on about was Batman Returns and On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, I haven't done either of them this year. But I did still want to do a Snowy Bond. Snowy Bond was like the mantra. So I went for Your Eyes Only from 1981. It's a Roger Moore outing. Now, Jamie and I were meshing through this one because it's quite funny. Few distracting things about this film. Number one, the lead Bond girl, Melina, is dubbed throughout the entire thing. I thought there was something wrong with my sound system. I was getting really upset. And Jamie knows me, like stuff like that niggles at me. I was going, what's wrong with this Blu-ray? Like, something's not right. There's an audio delay. Blu-ray, did you? Yeah, I was like, there's a delay. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
And then I just Googled, it's only when this one woman was speaking. So then I Googled, I was like, okay, is she dubbed? And then I just Googled it off the, he's like off the cuff, and it was literally like, she was dubbed for the entire film. And I was like,
why is that?
Okay, apparently she sounded too French, and she's supposed to be Greek.
Right. Okay. Fine.
So they dubbed her. But in terms of like the story of Your Eyes Only, I mean, it's really interesting watching those ones back. It's very similar to From Russia with Love. It's got a lot of elements that are similar from You Only Live Twice. And at this point, I feel like it was just kind of, you just had the formula. You had to get your big bass at the end. You had to do this, and you just mix and match. But that's kind of why I like going back to them. They're super easy. They're so far removed
not long ago. A few years ago. Yeah, I watched it a few years ago around Bonfire Night because it was on. So weirdly, went and stayed away just for like a couple of nights. Or maybe even just a night. And we were going to some like Viking burial. It was like it was Bonfire Night, but it was a Viking burial themed bonfire night. It's a really cool,
different style one.
And so like we were there, and I don't really have. I've got no access to live TV at home in terms of like I don't have like a traditional set top box or anything like that. So I'd have to just go on iPlayer or ITV, whatever. But so this was we had a TV in there, so I was like, I'll just see what's on TV, and it was that, and I would just watch it. I was like, this is pretty bad.
It's cheesy. It's like, it's not my favourite Roger Moore Bond, but actually people say there's moments where like it's quite. So Roger Moore was always the more kind of campy Bond, but there's a moment where he shoots a guy, and like the car is like on the edge of a cliff, and in a very Connery moment, he kicks the car off the cliff when he doesn't have to kill him. And like people at the time were like, "Ooh, that's really like dark for Roger Moore's Bond."
Yeah.
But if you compare it to what else was happening in 80s films at the time,
wild.
Really, not really.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was good fun. But the other really shady thing about it is a character called BB falls in love with him. And she's like a protege of like the main bad guy, Christatos. And he wants her to be an Olympian, but he's obsessed with like her purity. And she's Googled at the time, because I was like, this age range feels off. And like, I think at this point Roger Moore was like late 50s, maybe early 60s or something. Yeah. And like, she's supposed to be 16. And I was just like, oh god. Luckily Bond does not pursue it. He does put her off throughout, but he plays it up to her because she fancies him. Which
they always play it up a little bit, didn't they?
Which I find wild, because I'm like, I don't think she'd be attracted to it. It's basically like looking at her granddad at this point. And like, yeah, it's just really weird. And she fancies him, and he has to play up to it, but like nothing comes of it, thank God.
Good to prison.
Yeah, but also there's some really like good there's some good action of this. Did you see the sequence with the Citroen, the yellow Citroen, like C1 or whatever it is, like going through in France? Yeah, so like Bond can't get in his car, it blows up, so he ends up in like this terrible old Citroen, like going up and down, like.
They're all entertaining, you know. They've all got their own little charm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they've all got their own little charm. Like, even though they got a bit ridiculous in like the 70s and kind of early 80s.
Super repetitive. And also, you got to think this was after Moonraker, which went so far and so nuts. Like trying to come back down from that must have been impossible.
How grounded You Only Live Twice is.
Yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much what I watched really, apart from some TV stuff, which we'll get into later. But yeah, like you've got quite a list, so I'll let you go through before we get into T2 and Cliffhanger.
I mean, I've got a good like 15 films here probably, but I'm not going to. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of 2024 films because I'm catching up. So really important to note, like we will have Jane back on the pod. She'll be coming on at the end of the month to do top 10 2024 films. I've seen her list, very interesting. I need to catch up on it myself. I was talking to her today, so she'll be coming on the pod. John will obviously tell us again that Mean Girls is there, and he's probably not much changed
this year.
His top 5. Yeah, you can be like the colour commentator on that. But yeah, so she'll be coming on, and we also we also, over the Christmas period, I was speaking to which actually will fit in. It would have fit in really well today's episode, really. A YouTuber who is quite prominent, quite prominent physical media YouTuber that has agreed to come on. So we just need to sort out a date with him. But yeah, I'm really excited about that because I've been watching him for years now, and so it'll be good to like actually have him on the pod. And if you want a clue about who it is. His favourite film's Barry Lyndon, hey? You'll know if you know. But anyway, so I watched Heretic, which was from 2024, which is starring Hugh Grant.
Oh, I was well up for this as well.
Yeah, Hugh Grant and Sophie Thatcher. It's basically about like two missionaries they go into people's houses, like the classic like knock on the door and be like, oh, we're going to try and tell you all about faith and stuff like that, but they basically knocked on the wrong door. They're greeted by Hugh Grant, and they end up being kind of like, I can't really say anything really because I don't think the trailer really spoils anything, but they just end up in a really unsettling situation in a house with Hugh Grant, and Hugh Grant is absolutely chewing the scenery. He's had such a good run lately. Like he's really found
got a second wind, hasn't he, in terms of just like getting roles that aren't just the floppy-haired Englishman, which he was trying to get not into those types of roles for so long, and him getting old has allowed him to do it. The Undoing was the first one for me.
The TV show
for that, yeah.
The TV
that
show
was kind of like, hey,
yeah.
I'm Hugh Grant and I'm charming, but I'm going to do something different with it. And I felt like that was the first one like that. And then since then, he's just got loads of different kinds of things.
He did The Gentleman, which he plays some like slimy like Sun news reporter kind of vibes. But then since then, he's done Dungeons and Dragons. He's done Wonka, and obviously in Wonka he's an Oompa Loompa, which is absolutely hilarious. So. I finally watched Wonka as well, John. And yeah,
what did you think of Wonka?
Well, I just love how they rhyme pocket with chocolate. No,
and a hat full of dreams. Yeah, that's still a big play in our household.
I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
I didn't know how good.
Yeah,
I think it's great. I think it's good.
It's 0 on the original, but it's going to be like, I'm not expecting it to be that. It's like if you make, well, I think The Wizard of Oz 2 does exist, but. That says it all, really. The fact that I don't really know about it, like, yeah, I think that this is a decent kind of prequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It's a perfect standalone as well, though, isn't it? Like you don't really, even if you knew nothing about Willy Wonka and only watched that, it would be fine.
Yeah,
like,
it was good. It was 7 out of 10. You know, like good fun. Maybe 6.5, 7 out of 10. Timothy Chalamet as Wonka. I don't know how convinced I am about that, but he does his best, and he's a good singer, like, you know. So I did enjoy it.
What did you think of like the big dance number for "Do You Have a Sweet Tooth"?
Great.
I think it's so like genuinely. I'll stop raving about it, but like, there's loads of comedians as well that were from that era I grew up with, from like Peep Show and like The Office and that kind of stuff, like British comedies. And like,
definitely.
Watching them all together is just so much fun. But
they're all really fun. Slugworth, it's all just good fun. And I did really enjoy it. And Olivia Colman's great in it too. She's really funny. So yeah, it's perfectly serviceable. Heretic I gave 7 out of 10 too, by the way. I then watched a wild film called Better Watch Out. Right, so it's a Christmas slasher, which we're gonna watch this next year, John. Like, trust me, this is gonna be such good. And we're gonna watch it together because it's so good, and it takes such a left turn you never expect it. This is about basically a babysitter, obviously, in a safe neighborhood, and she basically has to defend a 12-year-old boy as strangers break into the house, and the home invasion isn't quite as normal as it may seem. So that's all I'll say. It's pretty gory, but it's fantastic. Like, it takes such a wild turn that even I didn't see coming, and I love myself a little twist. But yeah, so what I would say is that's on. You can get that on Apple TV Plus if you rent it. I bought it for $2.99 on Apple TV Plus, so I was like, well, it's cheaper than renting, so I'm just going to do that.
When they do that sometimes.
It is odd. So I own it now, so we can, in fact, maybe you can have my login. I don't actually know if we're allowed to share it.
I want to watch it with you if it's horrible. I'm not watching this solo.
Yeah, but it's. I also want to just see your reaction. But it's great. So I would say just go in as blind as possible. Go and watch that. 8 out of 10, absolute banger. I then finally got round to watching my 4K Blu-ray of Terminator. So this is going to be really interesting, actually. So
should we save the restoration chat for when we get onto T2? Because
we will.
It will cross.
It's actually over there. But so I think I watched that after I put up the Christmas tree.
So festive.
Well, so in our house, my job is to put up the Christmas tree, like the donkey work. No pun intended. But yeah, I've got the donkey work to do, like building the tree and stuff, and making sure that the yellow branches go in the yellow holes, kind of thing. And Vicky does the decorating of the tree, because one, I'm just not interested in decorating the tree whatsoever, and two, if I did decorate it, it would all be wrong anyway. So
it would get redone. So
yeah, exactly. It just get redone. So it's the same as when we load the dishwasher, you know. It just gets redone anyway. So what's the point? Anyway, we're not going to get onto that. Yeah, we've all got our own little jobs in this house, you know. So that was so I watched Terminator. I mean, I can say now, like, there are very few films that are like 5-star bangers. This is obviously one of them. The thing that kind of like really I thought was crazy, which I hadn't noticed for a while. I hadn't watched this film maybe in about probably a good 8 years, 9 years or something. But the fact that you don't know that Arnie is a cyborg until 40 minutes in is so crazy. Like, and that is, I can imagine that back in the day would be like so terrifying. And we'll talk about T2 as well.
I wonder if the original trailer delved into that or not. I can't even.
You'd hope that it wouldn't.
And also, I remember, I was watching a documentary about Terminator 1. Apparently its initial run was really poor. Like, Cameron had to beg the studio to like keep it in cinemas for longer to allow word of mouth. Yeah. For it to get the exposure it did, and then it becomes such a classic.
It's a 5-star. It's a 5-star.
But that's the kind of thing nowadays. The comparison story was, if a film flops in the first 4 weeks, you're pulled. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to leave it out there. Whereas back then, Jamie and I have talked about this. You'd have your initial showing at like full price, and then it would go to like a $5 house where like it's the cheapest showing and it would be on, and then it would go to like the dollar house where it would be on multiple times a day linked with it. Do you know what I mean? So it gave it opportunities, and then weirdly, if it did well at the dollar house, there was a chance it could even come back around again. Or like there's certain films that would literally be out for a year and a half because they just kept making money. Like,
that's what used to happen, didn't it?
What would happen? The only one I can think of in my lifetime that was like, that's probably Avatar. I felt like that was out forever.
Yeah,
I don't remember that because it was like the first 3D film.
You used to wait for a whole year for it to come out on video as well, like or VHS. So you had to catch it in the cinema, otherwise you're waiting.
We won't repeat this chat because I know we got into it recently. But my point being that imagine like if they hadn't like forced Orion to put more money and more marketing behind it to give it more word of mouth, because it wouldn't have come to anything.
Anyway, like the score of this film, Brad Fiedel obviously does the score for Terminator 2 as well. It makes the film so much scarier. Like, the score is really elevates it. So everyone knows what Terminator is. I watched the 4K version. We're gonna get onto the restoration. This 4K restoration is better than Terminator 2 one. I'm going to leave it there. But it's still got problems. So we'll talk about that in a bit when we get onto restorations, because there's a lot of stuff to cover. I then watched Nativity from 2009. So
what a film! That
really
was
good.
Filmed at like family
Coventry.
Friends. Yeah, they went to the school that was used, right? So
well, anyway, this is directed by Debbie Izzet. Really low budget. It's starring Martin Freeman. Ashley Jensen, who you'll know from like loads of TV stuff, Mark Wooten as well, and basically like this is a pretty like depressed and unhappy teacher is made to direct the school's nativity play, and falsely boasts that his ex-girlfriend plans to turn up because she works in Hollywood now and turn the production into a film, and kind of like it's a comedy. It's shockingly heartwarming, very funny, very entertaining.
You know, the little kids now, because it's been so long, they post like there's Instagram reels of them doing the stuff they did on stage as like grown adults, and it's really funny. Like, you know, the kid who does the breakdancing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, look, I'd say that it's
heartwarming.
It might not be for everyone. Like there is obviously that pulls on the strings, you know. Christmas Eve, John. What did I watch? Suspicion by Alfred Hitchcock.
So like I want to talk about this. Suspicion. So like, it's great because it's Cary Grant just being an absolute arse for an hour and a half.
Oh, he is, yeah.
But you try to work out if he's a complete dick and a serial killer, basically, or is he just a dick? It's a bit like the Humphrey Bogart one we watched before Christmas, where he was also being a complete dick for the entire time. And I can't think of the name
in a
of it
lonely
now.
place. In a lonely place. Yeah, you can go back to episode 86.
Yeah, something like that. But what did you make of it?
Well, it's tradition now that we normally go to Stratford upon Avon on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And then when we've done that, we've gone to the pub, had a couple of drinks, and come back. We always watch an old Christmas film. However, I had Holiday Inn on Blu-ray, and what they've stopped doing now, which is quite annoying. Is it annoying? Probably not. It's just money saving. Like most 4K Blu-rays now, old ones used to come with 4K Blu-ray and the Blu-ray, so it was 2 discs, one on Blu-ray, one on 4K. Holiday Inn, the newer Blu-rays don't have that anymore, so it's just 4K Blu-ray. So the in-laws don't have a 4K Blu-ray player. They do have a 4K. They do have a Blu-ray player. So in the end, we had to watch Suspicion, which was fine. It was great.
So how did you have the Blu-ray of this? Was that in your set?
No. I had to buy this separately. So I bought Suspicion, Notorious, Spellbound, and Stage.
This is when you and I went on the Amazon thing, because we were I bought the Spellbound, for example, which you couldn't get on Blu-ray, and I bought Rebecca and something else.
So I've got Rebecca, Spellbound, Notorious, and Stage Fright. And what was the other one? The boat one.
But, I've got that. I think it's just called Lifeboat, isn't it?
Lifeboat, yeah.
It's just literally one.
So we basically had to go and buy all these like random like Hitchcock films because my House of Hitchcock Blu-ray set is none of them are included, which is hilarious. So anyway, so I have that on Blu-ray. That one actually, that Suspicion film is actually the HMV Blu-ray. So they do HMV have their own Blu-ray label, the Premium Collection it's called. So this is about a wealthy young woman played by Joan Fontaine, who basically elopes to marry very charming Cary Grant, and soon learns that he is not the person he says he is. He's broke, he's lies all the time, he's obsessed with money and gambling.
Loves horse
racing. Gradually, she begins to suspect that he is going to kill her for her life insurance. So the film's great, like, because it kind of leads you down the garden path, and you're not even sure. I'm not going to spoil it, but you're not sure, like John said, like what Cary Grant is. Like, is he a liar, or is he an idiot, or is he like, does he have like real bad intentions? You don't know.
Or
and
he
does
just,
that.
Yeah.
It's quite. He makes you feel really uncomfortable and like annoyed at like the way he's acting, but.
Yeah, it's annoying because, like, without spoiling the ending, there was a harder edge ending that Hitchcock really wanted, and the studio were like, no. And like, there's an interview with Cary Grant, and he talks about what he wished had come out from it. But I advise you to watch the film first and then read up on it afterwards. But if you haven't got the Blu-ray, it is still on a BBC iPlayer. BBC iPlayer for some reason seems to forever have it on their menu. I don't know why.
They've got a Brief Encounter as well. 39 Steps. They've always got like those old school like. Premium
like
film
staples.
Well, so we watched it with the in-laws, and they're in their mid-70s, and I said, like, bar the opening 10 minutes where like Joan Fontaine and Cary Grant meet, fall in love, and get married within 10 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
The in-laws said, actually, that's just the way it used to be. You know, that's the way it used to be. Like, it was no messing around. Like they didn't seem to think that was a massive plot issue. Which I suppose
you met less people back in the day because you didn't travel as much and all those things as well.
You weren't going to find anyone on Tinder, are you?
Well, there's no internet, so like you only know what's in your neighbourhood.
I then rewatched The Holdovers. Okay, so
again,
it's crazy, right? But I've got into this habit now. I say this habit. You know me. I never give anything 5 stars. Recently, I've given Terminator 1, Terminator 2, and The Holdovers 5 stars. Because I do believe there is a special film now and again that just deserves 5 stars. Maybe they're not perfect in every single little way, which is what I used to argue for, but it's just incredible. And you can go back to this time last year and listen to when I was talking about The Holdovers. You don't need to hear it again. You know Paul Giamatti's in it, and he's incredible. It's got Divine Joy Randolph in it, who also was amazing and won an Oscar. Like, the film is just, I love it so much. It's probably my favourite Christmas film now. That and Home Alone. Like, it's got so much heart, and I watched that with the in-laws as well. They loved it. I then watched Carry On. So listen,
the Netflix one, yeah,
with Taron Egerton.
not Carry On Camping or anything like that.
No, and I think I would have preferred to watch that. This was very, very entertaining. However, I mean, my review of it was
take your headphones out, wasn't it, or something?
Passenger 57 plot holes, because it's obviously got you've got the Wesley Snipes film Passenger 57, but this film is covered and full to the brim with plot holes. It's fine, 6 out of 10. It's fine, but it's not a good film. Entertaining. I then watched Y2K, which is the new A24 film. So it's basically about it's New Year's Eve, 1999, and the last party before. Do you remember? I don't know if you're a little bit young. Do you remember,
I remember
when
the
year
fear
2000?
of the Millennium Bug. What happens when the computers go to 2000?
So this is basically acting that out. So it's like killer computers and killer anything with a plug on it is there to kill you. No, I'm serious. And basically you've got like a hybrid of like a toaster and a vacuum cleaner all like made up, and it's like using like all these different elements to like kill you. So it's really good fun. It's got Rachel Ziegler in it, Julian Dennison, which you'll know from Hunt for the Wilder People. Obviously he's a lot older now. It's got Jaden Martell in it, who is been in quite a bit. He's in It. Like that's probably what I know him most from, like the kid in It, but he's obviously a teenager now. It's just really good fun. Like I've seen a lot of people give it quite low scores, which is baffling to me. Like it's ridiculous. You probably get more from it if you were a kid in the 2000s. It's got Fred Durst in it, playing Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, and it's think of that what you will. Like it's like Chopping Mall meets This Is the End with Seth Rogen, you know. God, which ones do I skip? I'm gonna have to talk about these, John. I'm so sorry. Like there's one of them that I'm skipping. Hold on. Sneeze. Apologies, everyone. So I watched a film called The Order, which everyone must watch. And it was actually Jane messaged me about this when I put up my review of it and said like, oh, this is in my top 10. It's incredible. This is directed by Justin Kurzel from this year. He's done Nitram, which is the film about the school shooter in Australia. Yeah. He's done True History of the Kelly Gang, Macbeth. And he's obviously sadly done Assassin's Creed. When you look at his filmography, it's really like solid. Like every single film bar Assassin's Creed is really high quality, and he just doesn't really get spoken about much. This is a film starring Jude Law, and it's basically about a true story of violent robberies in the Pacific Northwest by essentially like Nazis, like National Socialists that are like robbing things, and they've got like this kind of like Nazi like gang, and it's about an FBI agent paid by Jude Law, who I don't actually really like. But he's fantastic in this. Like I do not like this guy as an actor, but in this he's brilliant. It's the best performance I've seen him in. I'm going to use this very basic, simple term later on, but this is just proper filmmaking. Like the cinematography, the glass that's being used, all the shots and the variations of all the shots, and it's shot on 35. It just feels like a proper film, and that we don't really get films like this. And again, I'm going to say that later as well. We don't get films like this anymore. This is it's just fantastic. It takes you on an absolute ride. It's a true story. I just recommend it massively. It's just a really, really filmic piece of cinema. That's such a wanky thing to say.
It really is
so wanky. It's in my top 10. I give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So I would. It reminded me of the assassination of Jesse James and Heat, which are two massively amazing films. So I would, if it doesn't get recognised now, it will in years to come. I'm telling you, it'll be getting reappraised. I watched The Apprentice, Donald Trump, kind of biopic, which shows you Donald Trump coming up to power, how he did that
with Kendall Roy.
Yeah, so I wouldn't actually call it a biopic, but it's in that vein, and it does have the guts to do what a lot of films don't, or biopics don't. And that's gives us a pretty damning look at like Trump's rise to power, and pretty much pulling no punches to show us the empathy that he doesn't have and the terrible things that he might have done, and at times how stupid that character is. Sebastian Stan does an amazing job, just with his face and his speech patterns, and he's not trying to imitate the character he's playing exactly, like, and it's really good for that.
But also, if you look at clips of younger Trump, his mannerisms are slightly different. It's just like with age, obviously things kind of get.
I think we've really
blown up a bit.
Yeah, we've kind of like we've seen Sebastian Stan do some fantastic things. Now he's not in the MCU anymore, which has been
fresh.
Really, fresh, a different man. The Apprentice, like he's been doing like great work. Like I think he's just won a Golden Globe for that. But I think that the only issue I had with the film is that it stops like rather abruptly, but it really doesn't pull any punches. Like it shows you what he might have done to his wife at the time, Ivana, what she accused him of, and then retracted. I would recommend it. Like it's an interesting watch for sure, and it shows you how horrible. What's his name? Is it Mark Strong? No, it's not Mark Strong. What's the guy's name from Succession that you just mentioned?
Oh, Kendall Roy.
Jeremy Strong. Sorry, yeah. Jeremy Strong is his lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's how they're like he builds Trump Tower because of that. Like he's got them over a barrel. Right, I'm almost done. I promise you. Land of Bad 2024. It's on Prime. It's got two Hemsworth brothers in, but not Chris Hemsworth. It's a war film. It's really, really good. I'd highly recommend that. 8 out of 10. Conclave. So the last couple of films are big films that I've got to speak about. So Conclave is a film. It's about the death of the Pope, and the cardinals. They're tasked with like managing the ritual of electing a new pope, which basically involves a lot of men getting around and voting for each other. There's a lot of men like in a room, like voting for each other, trying to like screw each other over, and it's fantastically made. Some of the best cinematography I've seen this year, bar The Order. The sound design's amazing, but when am I going to go back and watch a religious thriller about men?
You might
voting
if
for each
you
other?
watched Da Vinci Code.
No, I won't.
Not that one. Angels and Demons.
So it's a great film. A lot of people, it's getting really good reviews. I'd recommend watching it, but I won't watch it again. Finally, Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
Right. Have you seen this?
No, I'm really looking forward to it, but I feel like you're about to bash it. So.
No, I'm not. No, I've got some things to say about it, but I'm not going to bash it.
I've heard it's more fantasy than the first one, which makes me sad. But
yeah,
that's
fun.
So this is about obviously 30 years after the death of Maximus Decimus Meridius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I'll have my vengeance. And he's basically his Lucius is it's really weird to say. Lucius is played by Paul Mescal, who's completely miscast, is forced to go into the Colosseum and fight for these two crazy emperors.
Absolutely, it was supposed to be Barry Keoghan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not. But it's not. It's Fred Hinchenberger and Joseph Quinn, and they're absolutely unhinged, wild, really funny. It's definitely a bit more fantastical than the others. And he basically it's basically that again. And Lucius is fighting because he wants to kill someone who killed his wife. So Pedro Pascal plays General Asasius. Now, the film is really well made, and it looks like it could have been made the day after the original Gladiator, which it says a lot, really. It's well lit, but there's some crazy, strange choices in here, and there is two scenes in particular that I was just like, this could have been an 8 out of 10 if it didn't have these two scenes. One of them is baboons fighting baboons, but the baboons look like they've been like lifted from a Harryhausen picture. Like, I mean, like it's borderline stop motion in places. It's like, oh shit, we have run out of money. Actually, it's like, well, can you just do the best you can with it? These baboons look like completely. They do not look like they are part of the film. They look like they're part of like something else from the 80s, you know. So they look terrible. And then obviously everyone knows that the Colosseum gets filled with water, which actually did happen in the back when whatever year it was. But the problem was they've introduced sharks, which the sharks also look terrible, and I just don't see why. And I know I'm about the 50 millionth person speaking about this, but I don't know why the sharks needed to be there, and it just didn't add anything. So very, very strange.
Ridley said in his interviews
he doesn't
about
care.
it. He doesn't care about historical inaccuracies because he's like, prove to me it didn't happen, and I suppose he's got a point. But his logic was, he was like, look, these guys are massive and they go fishing every day. You're telling me they don't one day accidentally catch a shark and just shove it in a tank? And I was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, so but apart from that, really good. There's some characters from Gladiator 1 in there, but Paul Mescal this is probably like the worst performance from him that I've seen. He just seems really like one note, and
lacking charisma.
Stoic.
You don't really want to root for him. I just found him a bit. And I was trying to think about who I'd cast instead. And I couldn't really think of anyone.
It's hard when you got to follow Russell Crowe when he literally won an Oscar for that performance. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it definitely. Yeah, I fully agree. But it doesn't work for me at all. Like Mescal, it does not work for me in that role whatsoever. And it's almost like he's like phoned it in almost like. And I know that sounds really harsh, but that's just how I felt. And it wasn't in the spirit of Gladiator. The only other thing I will say is Denzel Washington's in it, and he is obviously the standout of the whole film. He's just fantastic. He's Denzel, you know. When does he ever give a bad performance? But he really brings that character to life.
The only bad Denzel Washington performance I've seen is the clip that goes around on Instagram when he's pretending to be a Cockney guy. You ever seen it?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I don't know what that's from, but yeah, I've seen that.
It's great.
That's hilarious. But yeah, so that's that. So sorry, that was a really long. How long are we running?
Too long. 35 minutes. So let's talk about the greatest action film of all time, as you've just talked about one which clearly isn't the greatest action film of all time. So we're going to talk about James Cameron's Terminator 2.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. This time he's back. For good.
Trust me.
Oh, John. Oh, God. Do you know what? There's about 10 to 15 films that I could watch over and over again. Ones that would finish and I could just put it on again. Mm-hmm. This is one of them. With its £100 million budget, grossing £520 million at the box office, or dollars, whatever. Nominated for 6 Oscars, and it won 4 of them.
I wonder what that budget would actually be in today's money as well. Because it'd be even more than that, wouldn't it?
Well, it would.
A lot.
It would, but it made 5 times its money back. John, you've seen this film before?
So, when I never had it on VHS, but I remember when my dad bought a DVD player, like early-ish when they came out. Do you know when like DVDs were like, it was really expensive to buy a DVD.
20 quid.
Yeah,
£20 a time back then.
But 20 quid then was a lot. And I remember really saving money, and I saved to get Terminator 1, and then we used to go on a website, I swear it was called like Britannia.com or something.
Oh yeah.
And it was like where you bought DVDs online, like Play.com back in the day.
Yeah.
Don't know if you ever used it.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And I remember the excitement. This is when it used to take 2 weeks to come in the post.
Yeah,
Not
crazy,
like next day delivery. I remember like waiting, and I was like, it's going to come soon. I was so excited. This is the era when they had like the 2-disc editions, massive special features. And the reason I got into the career I'm in is because I was the generation where I watched every behind the scenes thing. If there was 5 hours of special features, I'd watch the 5 hours.
Yeah.
But anyway, Terminator 2 was, Jamie and I have talked about this before, I used to before school watch scenes of films, and like in Lord of the Rings,
Crazy,
Fellowship of the Ring, it would be the before the Balrog, you know, when the cave troll comes in.
Oh yeah,
And they're in the tomb. Love that, right?
Yeah.
So there was that one, and for Terminator 2, it was always when he goes into the bar, like the initial bit when he just wrecks shop, and then it would always be when he just shoots all the cop cars. Those are like the two.
Yeah,
It's a weird niche choice, but those are like the two sequences I always went to, and I remember watching them, and like it's one of those films that when I watch it, I know every sound, every chord, every beat, pretty much every line, and I'm just like amazing. So sorry, that the first time I watched it, it would have been early 2000s. I can't quite remember when. But I adored it, and I tell you what I love as well about James Cameron movies, and again, this is around the time I saw Aliens as well, so I was fully in my element of finding all the things I love now, Alien and Aliens and James Cameron and whatever. But just like, do you remember when there were films like this with really strong female characters and no one made a big fuss over it and it didn't cause complete riots? Like,
you're right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens is like amazing, and then like again James Cameron had Linda Hamilton in this,
Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies.
Yeah, but it's just interesting how what point did everyone start losing their nut over that, or what point did Hollywood say that they can't lead a film because they don't make as much money? And it's just nonsense. But anyway, but yeah, when did you first see Terminator 2? I'm guessing it's VHS.
It was on VHS, yeah. I remember the VHS clear as day. VHS probably around 1996. which I would have been 7. But my mum just didn't care. Like, I'd be watching all sorts. I mean, and let's be honest, Terminator 2 was absolutely
everyone knew it anyway.
Not that bad compared to stuff like RoboCop. The only film I wasn't allowed to watch right back then was and it was obviously dead new at the time as well. Was around that time, like my nan had Pulp Fiction on VHS.
Oh, I mean, that's another level again.
And I was never,
content.
well, obviously, yeah, it's got the rape scene and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but that's the she drew the line at that. She's like, "You're not to watch that, son," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, we'll wait till you go out." but I remember just watching Terminator 2 just constantly, like way more than Terminator 1. I don't even know if we had Terminator 1 on VHS actually. Like, so you used to have to wait till that came on the TV and then record it.
It's very gory. It's much gorier than I remembered.
Me too.
It's interesting because I remember the bits that used to freak me out as a kid were when the T-1000 malfunctions and, like, you know, at the end, like when it dies and you see every host of like every character it's been throughout the film.
Yeah,
it's
good.
really unsettling, and like there's this kind of like
what about the noise
and
it
it's
makes.
really like it's really not nice, and I remember parts like that weirded me out more, and also it's just like it's just quite a cold film. There's not much warmth to it. There is by the end, and like, we'll get into that. And like Jamie sent a lovely video about the cinematography.
The video is brilliant, isn't it?
But I also find though, and I don't know if you find this, like there's things you listen to or watched as a kid, and there were some like really violent or really bad things around it, but you never took that bit on board as a kid, and then when you reach a certain age you rewatch something and go, oh god, that's bad. But it's funny, as a kid you don't see that level. Like as a kid I was like, motorbike, cool, leather outfit, shades, cool, like, you know, and like the swearing, like, even the swearing just kind of bypassed me, or I wouldn't be bothered about it, or like and I never thought about the violence. But it's interesting, like, so sorry, we're about 5 minutes into talking about this, and we haven't said. Jamie and I both watched the theatrical edition because on the 4K that is the only version currently available. Yeah. However, I was brought up on the special edition, which is another 15 minutes longer. Yes,
Director's cut, yeah.
And that version has like way more uncomfortable scenes in the and now in hindsight I realise how uncomfortable the scenes are, which is when Sarah Connor's in the facility, it's implied that she's like sexually abused because like the guy licks her face, and like there's loads of innuendo, like there's loads of weird scenes. And again, as a kid, when I watched that film, I don't think you just don't register.
No, you don't.
It's not good, but I was just like, oh, that's bad, but interesting.
So what I'll do just quickly is just run down the synopsis. We're going to spoil the hell out of this, obviously, but this is. I mean, I could probably do the synopsis without even reading something, but anyway, this takes place 10 years after the events of the original Terminator film, and we see basically two Terminators come from the future again, and we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the T-800, the T-800, and then we have Robert Patrick playing the T-1000. Obviously, this time we see the T-1000 that's different. It's an improved version of Arnold's T-800. So it's liquid metal. It's liquid metal with a cybernetic organism kind of situation. And we basically see John Connor as a young boy, 10 years old, and he's into all sorts. He's stealing money from the cash machines and just basically being a little twat, isn't he? Like going around on his little motorbike with his mate with his ginger mullet, and we don't know in the beginning, but imagine in the cinema at this point we think, oh, he's the bad guy again, but he's not. This one, he's the good guy.
I hate to tell you, they did ruin it in an advertising campaign.
Did they?
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Do you know what? And do you know what? That's a really good note.
And
because
when we slagged off Terminator Genesis for doing the same thing, maybe that's why they did it. They were like, well, if it worked for T2.
And we always like slag things off nowadays because when that happens, you know, like, well, they showed us too much in the trailer, but I guess they were always doing it. But yeah, so we kind of we see both Terminators racing towards John Connor to try and get to him first before one can protect the other one or kill John Connor. And so yeah, and that's it really. Like, and the whole film is kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, learning and protecting and
it's
keeping
also
John Connor safe from the T-1000.
It is all those things, but also and again, James Cameron has a streak of like maternal storylines in his films. So the first film is about Sarah Connor becoming a mother, because actually the whole film is about like, it's not about you, it's about your son and what he does. So like, we have to protect you to allow that future to happen. So that's like Terminator 1.
Yeah, and the future. That future being the computer,
the messianic figure who stands up against the machines and crushes them and like wins the war for the humans. Because I think it's forgotten now, but like the reason in the first film the Terminator is sent back is because that the humans have won the war. The last attack is like going to Skynet to blow up the base, and that's what they do. And as a last ditch attempt, they send Arnold back in time, and they send Kyle Reese back. Okay.
Yeah.
And what Sarah says in the voiceover for this, and this was all storyboarded out, but they didn't have the budget to film it because they ran over, was the start of Terminator Genesis, which is when they run in to attack the tower. They send Carl Reese into one room, and then they find out, oh god, there's another room, and in that room there's the T-1000, and then they send the reprogrammed Arnie back. But what's interesting is, in the original script was the idea of like Skynet didn't want to send the T-1000 back. Like it was a not known quantity. Right. Like the T-800s were reliable, you program them and they go. Was Skynet didn't really trust the T-1000. It was just like a last throw of the dice of like, sod it, why not? Because it wasn't fully tested. It's a prototype, which Arnold talks about at the start, which explains why like he does some odd things. Like he does seem to kill more than even in the first Terminator does. There's a lot of stabbing going on, like, and it's almost like he gets a bit of a kick out of it.
Definitely,
like a different element to it, a sadistic streak, let's say.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll try not get too nerdy on Terminator. But
no, you've allowed, you've got to.
But so sorry. Back on the maternal point though, was that it's about Sarah Connor finding the relationship with her son, because she treats him as almost like a deity in the sense of like, he must survive, he must do this, must do that, and like, we'll get into. We won't do breakdown scene by scene, but essentially Terminator finds John and says to protect John, so he can't go back to his foster parents, and we established really early on like they're going to be dead. So he says to the Terminator, well, we need to go and get my mom, and he's like, you can't go and get her because she's in a Pescadero mental facility. He's like, if you go there, it's exactly where the T-1000 is going to go. But he realises he can order him because in the future he's the one who's reprogrammed him. So they go to the mental facility to go and save Sarah, and when they go and they mount the escape, which we'll talk more about, but there's a scene in the car which is really sad, which is she's like, John, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then it looks like she's going in to hug him, but she's actually just feeling to see if he's got any wounds. And she's just so emotionally kind of staggered or cut off at this point, she doesn't have that relationship with him. And then weirdly throughout the film, as events happen and she realizes her humanity, because like she tries to be like a Terminator at some point in the film herself, and then can't follow it through and can't do it. She finds her humanity and then tells John how much she loves him, and then it all kind of builds back up, and like the family unit's restored by the end. Aliens had a similar thing with like the surrogate of like Ripley being the surrogate mum to Newt, so he's always kind of got that vibe going on, really.
Loves family, doesn't he? Avatar, full of family, mate.
Well, I think it's why these films appeal to all audience members, like no matter what, because there's something for everyone. Like you might just like the action of it, you might like the science fiction of it, or you might be like, hey, it's nice to actually have a strong female in this.
But it elevates
it,
doesn't it?
It's layered, and
that's what makes it the greatest action film of all time, because it has incredibly intense action, a fantastic idea that is foreshadowing the future of the humanity that we're living in now. I say foreshadowing the future. I don't believe that exact thing's going to happen, but something pretty similar could happen. Like, and then coupled with like the humanity of like all these relationships going on and stuff. You know, like it's even at the end. Yesterday, I was like, I'm definitely not going to cry at the end, but it still did like give me a bit of a lump, and I was like, oh god, you know that it still got me, like. And I've seen the film.
I know now why you cry.
Don't, mate, don't. It is something I can never do. Oh man, it gets me, man. It just completely gets me. Like, it's just. But you've spent like a full 2 hours and 20 minutes, kind of seeing this relationship and this Terminator become more human, I guess. You know, or pretend to become more human.
Yeah, you know? And all those story elements aside, yes, but it's also just a perfectly executed film of that era, so it's a mix of all the best things. So rear projection, but done to the best it possibly can be done. You're not going to see it any better. You've got infant CG. So we saw, like, on the Abyss, the water effects. There's a creature in that which looks similar to the T-1000. They took it to the next level, but he's walking, he's running. We've got all these scenes. You've also got, so just proper old school stunts. You've got helicopters literally flying under freeways.
A real helicopter flying over an actual freeway.
Because they looked at doing the models and said it was too much of a pain, so they went, we'll just do it for real, it'll be easier. And like the crew refused to film it, so Cameron said, I'll just do it, I'll man the camera. But just, and now, like, the thing is now, it would just never happen. I don't believe it would happen.
It wouldn't happen unless it was, sadly, unless it was a film with Tom Cruise in it, because
he's the only one who's got
very
the
much
bottle behind it to
he's the last person to be doing any of this kind of thing.
To be fair to Nolan, he did blow up a real plane for Tenet. I don't love that film, but like I
hate it.
He sticks to his practical elements. I'll give him that much. Like enhanced by CG.
How amazing, by the way, how amazing is that though? Like, and again, we'll talk about Cliffhanger in a bit, which we've not even said we're doing, but from the title of the episode. These like real stunts. Like I sent that same video to a few of my film friends. And one guy messaged back, one of our friends actually of the show, Tom, messaged back saying, "Oh God, that just looks like such a pain in the arse. Just green screen it." And I was like, "No, this is how you do it."
But this is why when you talked about For Your Eyes Only, and that's why people go back to those old Bond films, because when there's the car chase, it's a car, like it's a real car. They've trashed it. They've thrown it off a cliff. And also, when you see a guy skiing off a mountain top, apart from the dodgy cutaway when it goes back to Roger Moore with bad rear projection, when they actually show the stunt from afar, that's when it's like it's real. Someone's done that. You're basically then watching. You're watching the Red Bull video. Do you know what I mean? Like those promo videos they do. Like it's for real, and that's the appeal. And I think that tangibility is lost now. And like, don't get me wrong, there's still optical effects in this. There's not every stunt is for real.
No, of course not.
But the thing is, like, the weight of practical effects is still such a big deal. And what I mean by that is, if you've got an explosion, there's something about something practically flying out that no computer generation seems to really master particularly well. Like, it always just never looks quite the same. But there's safety, and like there's safety elements to this, which is why it's gone that way. But the other thing I want to talk about, and like this is going to tread into the restoration territory, but also about films in general. Jamie and I have talked about, why does everything look so flat these days? And when I say flat, I don't mean the fact they shoot it in a flat profile and colour grade it afterwards, because that's a different thing altogether. That's just a way of like gathering as much data in the image and then like
make sure you explain this actually, because there'll be people out there that won't understand it to your level.
So when you would film classically on a camera, like on an old film camera, realistically the image is kind of baked in as it is. And what I mean by that is, what you see as you're filming is what you're going to get out of it, if you're well trained and understand, because it is almost a science of like working out what that will come out like. And yes, you could colour the process afterwards to like change the colours slightly, but nothing like what you can manipulate with digital now. Okay?
Yeah.
When you shoot digitally, someone said to me once, you're basically shooting to gather information. So what I mean by that is, you're not making lots of creative decisions. You light things so it's like relatively evenly lit, and there's like some creative choices, but the idea is to make it flat. So if you're including CG, it's easy to integrate it in, because what CG doesn't like is like difficult lighting situations. So if you watch like old films from like the 90s now and say, oh my god, the cinematography looks incredible, it's because it's very distinctive, because they're not worrying about matching in special effects a lot of the time. It is just as it is. So you can be really creative with like having more like the kind of lighting you might expect at a theatre, like really like, high contrast or whatever. But then nowadays it's like everything kind of has that soap opera look to it, that Netflix film look. And when I say Netflix film look, everyone knows exactly what I'm on about. Mm-hmm. And apparently a lot of that is just to make it as easy as possible to match either cameras or to match effects which go into that, so you lose that kind of look. Now, this restoration's odd because
this 4K one,
the 4K restoration is odd because basically they've sapped the grain out of the image. So film always naturally had grain, because when you well, grain is literally what is on the film, and like it moves and it has a texture to it, and it's kind of like what we associate as a filmic quality. If you want an example, when Dune Part 1 and Part 2 were filmed, and Joker, that I think they're two different cinematographers, but anyway, they did the process where they shoot things digitally and then they run it through a film emulation after the fact, or they apply it to film and then scan that in to get that filmic grain. So there's people wanting to add that in.
Greg Fraser for Dune, who's amazing. Like.
And then you've got someone like Cameron, who's now going back and said, no, I don't want any grain in any of my films. So he's gone back and restored Terminator 2, True Lies, Titanic, and
The Abyss,
and he's cleaned it all out.
Big problems here.
So you kind of get this weird thing where faces look waxy. They're not sharp. They are sharp around.
They're sharp
on the surface. They're like waxy.
There's no skin texture.
That's
you can't see
it.
any pores of the skin.
And then the other thing is, with the high dynamic range, is you get this kind of weird off-putting contrast where it looks like, you've all seen an AI generated image on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, and your brain just registers it's not quite right because there's always like this really weird contrast. That's what this film looks like. The opening 30 minutes, I spent the whole time being like, this looks worse than the Blu-ray, and I couldn't like get myself out of that mode. But I said to Jamie I wanted to watch the same version he watched so we could have this chat, because there's nothing more annoying than watching different versions and then being like, oh, mine did this. But it's really distracting, and it's just a real shame that this is one of the best action films ever made, but it doesn't look the way it used to look. And it's a bit like the Star Wars chat, which is, you can't watch Star Wars the original way anymore. You have to watch it with the CGI added on top, and all the CGI is dated more than the practical parts that were done in the 70s. And no, there's a few tweaks to this film which I don't mind. There's a AI face replacement over stunt double. I think that's fine. I don't begrudge that. I think that's a fix rather than a big issue.
The old one's very very telling.
It was always clear it was a different guy, and like that's fine. But what I do take issue with is watching a version of this film where there's just no grain. It looks overly sharp. It looks like AI. Like, and I know it's not fully AI. There's some processes going on for it. But also, apparently, the reason there was no grain is because this was re-released in 3D 2 or 3 years ago. Can't remember when. Yeah. And when they did that, apparently, to make the depth maps you make to make the image 3D, you can't have grain because it just buggers the image up. So they wiped the grain out, and it just looked weird. I just watched it. And I thought, this does not look how I remember it, which is really strange. And like the Blu-ray. No, it's not as high resolution, but in terms of like the actual colour of the film as well, because the colours have been tweaked, the new version's been made to look more teal and orange. And to be fair though, and I've only changed my mind on this because of the video you sent earlier, the cinematographer always talked about how the idea was so it's the same cinematographer from Terminator 1 to Terminator 2, and he's like, I always made the Terminators be shot in cooler tones to emphasise the fact they're not human, and like,
blue lights,
cold killers, whatever, blue light. And then you've got the orange lights for the human characters, and as the film progresses in Terminator 2, the Terminator's becoming more human-like. So by the end, he's shown in warmer tones. Lovely.
In the steel mill, you can see like there's more of like an orange on his face, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But the white balance at the start of the film. So when I say white balance is literally, if you saw a white piece of paper, if it appears normal white, that's like daytime white. If it appears slightly yellow, then it's a different. I'm not explaining as well. Anyway, basically they've adjusted the white balance so the film looks cooler, a lot cooler than it did initially. However, this is apparently what the cinematographer intended, so I don't know. Look, it's Cameron's filming. He can do what the hell he wants with it, and like,
it's a shame though. It's a real shame. Like,
I don't like not. I like what Ridley does. I like Ridley's idea of, I've got 8 versions of Blade Runner, or God knows how many, but guess what? You can watch any version you want, and you decide.
I've got this to watch.
So apparently that's not that bad. Apparently
that's why I bought it. So I don't own Aliens for the fact of.
Oh mate!
Apparently, Aliens is worse, genuinely worse than the Blu-ray. Oh, you got the Aliens 4K?
Yeah, no. So I paid for the digital release first before I bought the disc, and I'll tell you why I did that, because it was like £5 to buy it digitally. It's the same 4K transfer, just obviously stream, not the disc. So I was like, I need to see what it looks like first. And my God, it is just...
That's one of the worst ones out of all of it.
It's just... Aliens is a gritty film, as is the Terminator, and like they need the noise and grain.
The Terminator looks good, and that does have grain. So that's what I will say. Like the Terminator,
restored by
looks good.
someone else, though, wasn't it?
It was restored. Yeah, it's I've got it. It's literally up there.
Anyway, yeah.
But so
Miramax, I think.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was Miramax. Yeah. This one's Studio Canal, which actually Studio Canal are usually great, but I don't know if it was actually them that restored it. Now. Yeah. I think the main problem is now, and there's a video on this on YouTube actually, ironically from the person that I said had agreed to come on the pod, and they have gone through that film, and it's basically what they used to do, like, what they were doing like just only a few years ago, like your Blu-ray labels such as like Arrow, Criterion, they were going in and they were just scanning it. Like not them,
the correct way. And sometimes you have to fix things, but you did minimal fix. Bond Blu-rays are an example as well.
Taking off
great
hairs,
example.
They had to take the hairs. The Bond Blu-rays are great because it actually tells you what they've done to restore each film. So, Dr. No, for example, they removed like 6,247 hairs and specks from the film, like that. The actual film grain with tweezers taking it off.
And also some had to be digitally painted over, but it's all in line of you've got software which can literally go back 4 frames and say, well, that frame's not moved, so that matches to that. That kind of stuff is restoration because the negative is damaged. There's no problem with that. The problem is when you completely go and change what it looked like. The other, Jamie's saying Terminator. He just sent me the re-release for Fincher's 7. 7 was notorious for having
so
very distinctive look. So let me.
There's a 4K. So basically, there's been a 4K version of 7 that's just been announced, and the color grading has been changed.
So basically, here you go. So they did a process. Listen to episode 1 of the pod to find out more. Was it episode 2? But basically, it was called the silver retention process. And basically, what that was 7 was shot on film. It's 1995, and they added this special effect after the fact in terms of like the chemical processing to make the blacks blacker because it's a really dark and moody film, and it's such a like high contrast, grim film. And the 4K release has literally brighten everything up like so much to the point where it's losing the aesthetic of like what that film is. And it's a shame because apparently Finch was just like, I don't want to sit through the restoration of this. And I understand, by the way, that directors probably get sick of having to go back through their old films. And even if that is the case, can't they just have like a devoted disciple who knows the film well enough to go through?
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you get something like Vertigo, which has been restored God knows how many times, because they did that massive one in 1995, wasn't it? Then it had to happen again for the Blu-ray and whatever.
It's happened again for the 4K.
But you've got people who are religiously, and Arrow do this, religiously sticking to that. It's just got to look, as it did,
as it was intended,
as intended, and not tinker. And we're in this obsession of 7. Well, it's available on HDR. So we've got to boost it to look the best it can look. And it's like you're getting this phase of stuff where so the only way to watch 7 the way it was intended now is on the Blu-ray, which is now probably actually 10 years out of date. But if it's the closest one, Aliens is the same. The Aliens Blu-ray people slagged off at the time for not being true to the original colour palette. But then when they saw the new Aliens 4K, everyone was like, do you know what? Blu-ray's well better. Stick with that. It's just wrong.
I have the one call why, and this is directors as well that are doing this. I mean, ultimately they have the final say, but I think that no matter what, you can argue. I know it's James Cameron's Aliens is James Cameron's film, but no matter what, an objective. The objective opinion is that Aliens looks worse on 4K, and it does. But the problem with it,
but they say they do it to make it look digital and make it look more modern. But it doesn't even look more modern. It just looks weird. This is what I don't get. I don't understand the process when they sit there and watch it back. I don't know what TV they've got, but honest to God, they're watching it going, oh yeah, it looks all right. I wonder if it looks better projected. Maybe they're watching it projected in a booth, and maybe it looks better if I'm getting real benefit of the doubt. But
I don't think
actually,
so.
I can tell you what, it doesn't, because I've got one of those. I've got that Nebula projector now, which is a lot smaller. It's not as good as my BenQ one, but it's a decent image and it outputs a 4K image. And I watched a bit of Aliens on that, and it didn't look any better on that than it did on the normal TV. So anyway, rant over. But
what I was going to say quickly was just that. One of the main things that is happening now, sadly, is that I don't know how much money is in this anymore in terms of how much it costs to pay someone or pay a group of people to sit there frame by frame scanning this in to then go through it correctly. I don't know how many they're selling and the cost of the rights to the film and the cost of the scanning equipment, renting the scanning equipment, all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what's happened with Terminator is, again, still, like, even though it's one of the better looking ones, and it probably does look better than the Blu-ray, it's obviously been done by AI. So there are bits of like text in the film where if you freeze frame it, the text
Squiggly.
is squiggly, like, and so it's that's been basically, I'd imagine it's just been AI upscaled a lot of
And
it.
the truth is, if I'm being like really honest, in about 5 years' time, I reckon the AI upscale will be good enough to actually do the job. And actually, do you know what? To play devil's advocate, really random. I don't know if I mentioned this on pod before. Apologies if I have, but I used to like Jerry Anderson's Space Precinct, which is a really bad niche 1995 show, but it has loads of models in it, like Thunderbirds. Oh god! And they released the HD Blu-ray's just coming out for like 60 quid, and it's only got like 20 episodes. But they released the first episode in HD on YouTube to stream, so you could see the quality, because it's only ever been available VHS, and then the DVD was like an awful transfer, like really really bad. Anyway, that show, I believe, wasn't shot on film, so it's an upscale, and it's a 90s TV show, but like the upscale looks like a really really well done one. So whatever process or whatever they've used, bang on. Like, so it can be done well. Like, I don't want to just be like outright. I just think it must be hard to instruct an AI to keep the director's intention, or it's been told to do different things. And another thing is, some studios,
it's good. It's fine.
I'm passionate about these films, especially Terminator 2, especially Aliens, because
Goodfellas,
they're a massive part of my childhood. Yeah, but like Aliens, apparently they didn't even rescan it. They had the 2K transfer, so the 2K scan, which is what they use for the 1080 release for the Blu-ray. They were like, oh, that's fine, we'll just sharpen it and AI it off that. So it's not even a true like 4K scan again. It's basically an upscale of the Blu-ray with new effects added to it and more noise reduction and more AI sharpening. It just looks wrong. I can't. But then the thing that makes me more sad is, if you go to rent Terminator now, or if you go to rent T2 or Aliens, the only version you will see is the version that looks weird.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because they replace it on iTunes instantly. Because I remember a director, I can't remember which director it was, but tweeted out being like, "Why is my pristine version of Aliens been ruined with this 4K monstrosity?"
Yeah,
like, thanks Apple. And he bought it digitally, but they just updated it because obviously on the server, it's just like the new version now. So he couldn't even keep, like, if you search like, I want to keep my 2003 version of, you know, Alien 3, they're like, no, like, this is the version we serve on the server.
Yeah, this is when you own
so
it.
So even when you think you own it, like, you're still owning whatever version they're telling you having. And I'm sure, do you know what?
That's crazy.
Like, we'll stop now. I'm sure most people don't care, but I just think in terms of, like, it's really sad that, especially Star Wars is the worst for this, but you should be able to access a version which is the way it was originally intended, not how the directors decide to change it 30 years later. I know it's their work, and I know they can do these things, but, like, Ridley's always my example. He lets you watch whatever the hell version you want.
Yeah, he supplies you with every version.
You've got 8 cuts of like, he's not 8, I can't remember what it is, but like Blade Runner, you can literally watch whatever version, and he's like, I don't care. He's like, it's my film, I love it. He's like, Final Cut's my preference, but you go nuts. Like, I do not care.
That's the way it should be, though.
But every time the picture, have you ever seen a bad transfer of Blade Runner? You ever been like, oh, that's terrible? Like, it just doesn't happen. No. Alien as well. Aliens from 19...
So I've got Alien and Blade Runner, and they both look stunning.
So, okay, those two films are comparable eras to Terminator 1 and Aliens, for obvious reasons. Why is there such discrepancy then? Because it's fiddled with after.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a choice.
Little fiddlers.
Anyway, back to T2, about all the things we love about it, not moaning about the dodgy
so
transfers.
Funny, man. So funny.
Sorry, that was about a 7-minute rant on that.
No. It's
not good.
I think it needs to be said, to be honest.
It just makes me sad, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, look. Anyway, so I just wanted to go through, like, just some of my
key scenes, mate. Key scenes you
favorite
love.
parts of this film. So obviously,
all of it.
The first thing I noticed actually is Terminator 2. It was scarier than I remembered it to be in certain parts, because I always just be like, oh yeah, but the first one's the horror, the second one's not that scary, but it is still pretty scary. However, it is a different tone. Like the tone when he steps out of the bar to Bad to the Bone. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and he's. Have you ever seen a man wear sunglasses so well? I ain't. And then you've kind of got like a little bit after that when John Connor is on his motorbike. You've got "You Will Be Mine" playing by Guns N' Roses. Which, little fun fact for you, the only time when Slash has not used the Les Paul, he uses an Ibanez for that particular song. So that's
and it's reused again in another Terminator film. Do you know which one it is?
Dark Fate.
Terminator Salvation. John Connor steals.
You love it,
It's
man.
ridiculous as a Terminator motorbike, which is mad that he plugs his USB-A port into to manage to hack it and
course
drives
he does.
off into the distance, and that's what's playing for no
film.
reason.
Anyway,
I
so
like
yeah,
it.
so I think that like in terms of the tone and stuff, it is a little bit different. I just love the reason why this film turned out so well is obviously a lot to do with James Cameron and how he's
Absolutely.
decided to direct it. And what we see here is all sorts. We've got Israeli commandos training the actors on how to use weapons. We've got Linda Hamilton, who is
Her transformation is
completely
insane.
and that is what I've got on this. How have you read my notes? Linda Hamilton's transformation is crazy. She's so lean and ripped and powerful. All of those little bits, and then not to mention the miniatures that they've made to show that. Go on.
Just to say on Linda, just before we go back, you know, in the sequence where it shows her dream, which is when she's warning people, trying to warn them out from the park, when it shows her dressed as the waitress from '84, which is what she used to look like,
Yeah.
my brain's like, I can't believe that's the same year, because she looks so much younger with like the curly hair.
That's so that was her, but then it got switched to a model. So
No. You know when like she's playing with the kid in the park.
Oh, moving.
Do you know what I
around
mean?
and stuff,
Yeah, and moving
Okay.
around. It's really weird to me to be like, oh my god,
Different
like,
hair, isn't it?
I know the hair's
Yeah.
different, but what's mad is like the hair makes such a difference. She looks so much younger.
If I
but
grow my
also-
hair, mate, honestly, I'm growing like I'm taking
No,
years
but
off
her
my life.
whole persona, she's so smiley and so happy, and I suppose it's such a juxtaposition to how you see her in this film, where she's like clinically depressed and God knows what else.
Well,
because she's
PTSD,
literally being
all
held,
sorts, yeah.
being held against the will, when actually a company and a load of people know that what she saw is legitimately true, but they've just locked her up anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, miniatures. Tell us about the miniatures.
Yeah, well, the fact that they've got
Bigatures.
like there's bigatures, miniatures and bigatures. For a lot of these scenes, like the scenes where you see like the complete desolation of what is it? Whereabouts are they? LA? I don't know.
I thought it was San Francisco. But I might be
San
wrong.
Francisco. Yeah, sorry.
I don't know why.
I think you're right. But the desolation of like the area that they're living in, but these miniatures being just blown to pieces, they just look amazing, and you can see like there's so much extensive behind the
Tangible.
scenes. Yeah, and again, like although you know that they're miniatures because they don't look exactly real, they still look better than anything CGI, and it's just all of those little bits put together, done with the stunts as well. Like they picked up Edward Furlong from the streets of Pasadena, like. And they had him like lifting weights in between schools and motorbike lessons, and like it's wild, really. And it's this real big shame how kind of
I
his career
feel bad
afterwards.
for Edward Furlong. I think I've read previously. I won't delve into it today. There's plenty to read about, but I feel like he got lost in that Hollywood system in terms of just wrong crowd, wrong people.
Yeah,
and,
I
like,
think so.
It happens a lot. Like, who's the guy from Lost Boys, the two kids who we really like, and like they had a similar story. And
Corey
it's just really-
Feldman.
yeah, and it's just like the child star gone wrong situation, and like Edward Furlong was supposed to actually do Terminator 3, as in not just the camera version, the version we got with Nick Stahl, but like he basically was told to behave himself to X date and like didn't make the
I think he
day.
was on like heroin and stuff, like lots of drugs. And stuff. I don't know.
And also, have you ever seen him in? Is it X, the one with Ed Norton when he's in the prison? Like he's
American
really
History
violent.
X.
Yeah, have you seen it?
I've seen it, but I didn't know he was in it. Like, as in, I've not seen it for
He's
many
good
years.
in it. Like
Okay.
genuinely, like it wasn't like he was a kid actor in this, and then like that's it. Like
I think he's one of the great child performances I've probably ever seen. Like, the animatronic, they literally were doing like animatronic duplications of living things. So like when Arnie, the scene I always remember the most was when Arnie, after he's like So one of my favorite scenes in the whole film was when they storm the building and they're gonna like set on fire, like they're gonna destroy the chip in the hand. That when obviously Arnie at this point he's not allowed to kill, and so
kneecaps everyone.
Kneecaps everybody. But he goes and he like shoots all those like all those smoke things like to like take everyone out. But then after that he walks into another room and they're shooting the shit out of him, right? And he's that is an animatronic. Like they're actually shooting an animatronic. Walking is like an animatronic from it's just a body there. It's got a guy walking behind it. So that exact bit there where like half of his head is like starting to like show like the robot and stuff. I had a massive like vinyl figure of that. It's probably like 30 centimeters big, and you press the back of it and the eye would light up and all the red bits would light up on his body and stuff. It was so cool. When I think about this now, like Terminator, like me growing up probably in the 90s as like just I was born in 89, so when I was like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old, Terminator, like there was Terminator merchandise and Terminator toys everywhere. It was absolutely humongous. And so when I was thinking about this yesterday when I was watching the film, that obviously we have that with Marvel now. Like I think Terminator was like just as big back then. Like it's insane. Like all of the.
I don't think it would have quite the. I think it would. You got to remember then it was different because media was so much smaller.
That's what I mean.
So like you didn't really have. I think cable was obviously around, but much smaller degree. Not everyone had it. So essentially, you got less channels, and then cinema. Like if a film was popular, like it was popular, right?
But
like
the toy selling aspect of it, and how popular like Terminator 2 was at the time. Like Arnie was like known as Terminator, and we'll have to talk about his performance in a second. But yeah, so that's probably like one of my favorite scenes. And the other one is when there's a couple of chases in this film. Like obviously one of them is the beginning where Robert Patrick's chasing the motorbike, and apparently he trained so hard that he actually was like catching up to that motorbike and he could keep up with it.
Robert Patrick also is underrated in this, by the way.
Oh my god!
At the start of the film, and someone raised this point, I think it's very true, which is everyone remembers him as being like the cold psychopath towards the end, but he actually starts off really like he seems all right. Like when he goes and says like, "Oh, is this your boy?" You know, like have you seen him? And like
he's a good-looking
smiling.
kid.
No, but like he's smiling, like he's got a bit of charm to him. And then it's only when he gets his eyes on the prize, and he's like, "Bam, off." Then he's doing his social graces now.
Well, James Cameron chose Robert Patrick on purpose because he was so different to Arnie, as in like he wanted someone like completely different, like that the T-1000 was more advanced, and he thought
a Porsche rather than a
that was it.
Yeah.
But he described
tank,
he described Robert Patrick as cat-like, as in his appearance
Puma,
and the way he moved and stuff. So I found that really interesting, and I guess he is a lot smoother and less clunky than Arnie. I think that's a real.
He is, but do you remember for the behind the scenes of Terminator 1 that initially the Terminator was supposed to be able to blend in with anyone, and it was going to be Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen was actually like the idea of
that'd be pretty cool.
He could just be down an alley, you would take no notice of him, and then bang, and then the Arnold thing. I mean, how different it would have been if it wasn't an Arnold from the off, but
so it's got to be Arnold, you know. It has to be Arnold, and like So anyway, I just the effort that's gone into like all of this is just like astounding, and we're left with, and it gets thrown around all the time, like just a complete and utter masterpiece. Like it is.
It's just a perfect like amalgamation of like every technique that was available to them in that era,
and they even were developing techniques at the time and stuff like so. With these like computer generated parts that they integrated, they managed to integrate into Robert Patrick. They basically scanned his body and stuff, which wasn't being done at the time, and they then used some of that tech in like Lord of the Rings, like which was like almost not 10 years later, but about 7 years later when they were probably making it. But it's astounding. Like, and I think that James Cameron I'm just looking at his filmography now, and I'm just like, is there anyone out there that has a filmography this big? Like it's big in it.
Yeah,
I don't mean in size. I mean in like
no,
spectacle.
in terms of quality. Yeah, I think for me, you have to remember he was brought up on the Roger Corbett. Is it Roger Corbett?
Corman
movies, and basically he had to do a little bit of everything, and he did special effects, so he knew his way around it. His first directing job, but then he got kicked off of was Piranha 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then after that, he did Terminator. So he always had an understanding of that side of it, and that's why when he did Aliens, which was a really troubled production as well. He fell out with the British crew a lot, but he knew how to do so many things that people couldn't BS him, basically. If they were like, oh, you can't do that, I'll move this there, he'd be like, yeah, you can. And he'd show you, because he'd worked on that set at like every level in terms of lighting or like how the effects worked and whatever else. So he takes no prisoners. And I feel like if you speak to or watch a lot of interviews about what he's like to work with, I feel like he's quite an intense person. But in terms of what it delivers, like, you just can't deny it. Like, it's just
completely undeniable. Like, there's people out there that, like, he's probably an absolute shit to work for, but like when he's producing that level of quality, like, you probably wouldn't care if you were an actor, or if he was like being as demanding as he is. It's like, well, sadly, like, the art, that's what the art needs. You know, it needs someone that is like, I know you have these sets out there nowadays that are like, oh yeah, it's a 9 to 5 kind of thing, like, which is fine. But like, when he's delivering, this is not that. No, this is not little indie projects out there. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Just two more things. One, Arnold Schwarzenegger, his best role for me, because yes, he's not the greatest actor in the world. Like, his comedy timing's fantastic in lots of different films, but let's be honest, he's not an amazing actor. However, when he's acting like a robot, much like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, when he acts like he has no idea what's going on, he is perfection. Like, as in, it just, the role was made for him, and this is it. It's unbelievable. The only other thing I wanted to mention was the fact that they had to put up lights for 5 miles on that highway at the end. So we'll talk about that scene in the end scene, I guess. Like, we've not even mentioned Miles Dyson. We could be here all night.
I'm here to talk about Miles Dyson after you're done, don't worry.
But so the scene where they've blown up Cyberdyne, they're being chased by the T-1000 in the armored car, and that motorway scene, the highway,
amazing.
So James Cameron wanted lights all the way down that road and closed off the whole road because he wanted a scene where there wasn't so many cuts in it. And yes, that's the scene when we've got the Robert Patrick in the helicopter, the T-1000, and flying, not him not flying it, but there was a pilot flying that helicopter under an overpass, which is just how is it not CG? Then you've got the rear projection, which is actually the rear projection but on steroids. It's moving with kind of like it's on a big rig, and it's just like there's no expense spared on any of it. And so that was like one of the most expensive parts of the whole entire film. And they made the steel mill. So that steel mill at the end, that was an actual made set, which I didn't realise.
No, it was an abandoned one, which they made it look like it was working again.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Same thing. And they had to have like all those lights underneath to like give off. It was actually freezing cold.
Freezing
in there,
cold.
To make everyone think it was hot. But what I was, it's for me, it's just like all the best crafts of that era available, perfectly executed, and that's why I get annoyed when it's tampered with image quality, because I don't want to see it tampered with. I want it presented as it looked as then, because it was great then, it's great now. But also like energy, momentum of that film, and the editing of it, pace of it. 2017,
it won best editing at the Oscars, and it was along with best makeup, along with best cinematography.
Can I talk about my favourite scene? Because you've done a lot of your favourite scenes.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm just all over it. I'm all over it.
I tell you what, though, and I always find this, when it's a film we like, when it's a film we like, it's a lot of like listing stuff we like about it rather than actually like delving in. Because when you're being critical of something, it's actually easier to kind of pick apart the things that you didn't like and go through. Whilst when you like something,
there's nothing wrong with this.
This was good, and then this was good, and then this. So apologies. My favourite scene in this film has always been when Linda Hamilton's decided that she's had the nightmare sequence. By the way,
no fate.
The nightmare sequence is incredible because it nails that thing of like she's shouting but no voice comes out, and I hate that. Whenever you have a dream and
you're
like
you're in a fight and you're punching in slow motion.
I don't have fight dreams. Mine are like horror ones like that, where like not nuclear holocaust, but like the whole I'm saying something they can't hear me, and I'm like, what is going on? And then she's shaking it and rattling it, and it's all muffled. Incredible, love it. Then she makes a decision, which is, if I take out Miles Dyson, I'm saving the future by preventing Skynet and the creation of it through Cyberdyne. So she goes full G.I. Jane, like gets like the black military cap, the glasses, and she just goes off like loaded to the nines.
Yeah.
And she's scoping him out, and there's the great sequence, which is you're following the RC car around the house, so it's giving you the geography of the house, and it's exactly what Kubrick did in The Shining, isn't it? It's following the tricycle. It's the same idea.
It's giving
right?
you the geography of the house. It's so smart.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so that's there. That's where the front door is. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And then the child's going to go in, and then the attack's going to go wrong. But it's when she's like got the gun, and then she's aiming between his shoulders, and then she goes head, because she's like, gotta make sure I get it. And it's the moment when she misses, but she's glad she missed because she's becoming more like she seems very not human at the start of the film, as mad as that sounds, because she's been so like ruined being incarcerated. But then she finds her humanity through the fact of like she's not a Terminator. She just can't kill someone and not care about it, no matter how evil this man's actions are. He himself is not evil, but his actions go on to do evil things. She can't bring herself to kill him, and when she has that realization, I think that acting is incredible. When she starts going shh, shh, and she's like holding them at pistol point. She's in the house, and then the kid's like, "Don't hurt my daddy," and I'm like,
Don't you hurt my daddy!
But it's incredible acting, and then she's just like having a breakdown on the floor, and the family are like, well, we can't get up because she's still got a gun. You know what I mean? Like, and then wait until John comes back in with the Terminator and resolves the situation. And I also love that the Terminator has no plans to go back, the T-800. So when John Connor's literally like, I'll just rip your arm off, just show what's going on, and he just goes, rips it off, rips the skin off, because he doesn't matter, like he doesn't have to infiltrate anymore, like he's doing his bit, he's happy to shove a glove on, like all that element of it. And this was also referenced recently on Mr. Sunday Movies when they went into it, but it's just so true. And I don't know, I think, as you said, it's just so layered. It is an action film, and you can just watch it for that. There are like relationships and ideas behind it. There's the whole existential threat of humanity trying to better themselves through technology and how it can turn on you,
which is almost now happening. Which
we don't like to think about too much. But like the themes of like every Cameron film has a thing about technology. There's always like a link to like relationships with technology. They all have some element to that, from Terminator to Aliens to The Abyss or Avatar, obviously, you know. But so I just think it's very, very good. Joe Morton's Miles Dyson does the best breathing acting ever. I don't know how much longer I can hold this. And then like also we haven't talked about this film. The use of slow motion in this film, like it's very select sequences, but what I loved is like when we go back again, when they rescue Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor, from the facility, and the doors open and she sees the Terminator, and she's like, no, and she's like running the other way in slow motion like a nightmare.
But you hear the squeak of her feet on the ground. And it's just like, because for her this is literally 10 years ago happening again. She's like, God. And she wants to run back into the penitentiary. If you notice, like she runs back towards them when they take her out. She's not even bothered. She's just like, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. There are 215 bones in the body, and that's just one of them. I like it. Yeah. I used to like. She's just brilliant. I must have been really annoying last night because I watched it with Vicky, and she's only ever seen it once, and I'm like doing that thing where I'd say the line before the actor does, and I'm like, I'll pump him full of this shit, like, and all that kind of. Yeah. I'm just like, and it's just. I know we just sound like we are just sounding like at the moment now. Hopefully you've learned a lot about the film, but we've done some good behind the scenes. We're just gushing about it now because the final. We may as well just touch upon the final scene, and then the final like kind of the climax, and when the liquid nitrogen. So they do they leave Cyberdyne, they blow up that building, which was like one of the biggest explosions at that point in time. Four-story. They blew up a 4-story building in real life. 11 cameras. There you go. Yeah. Highway chase, lovely. Love the highway chase. After that, you got the helicopter chasing them. Helicopter crashes. Then end up in 2 vehicles. Vehicles crash into a steel mill. By the way, like. All of that just like could have been made yesterday. It still looks like. No, it looks like nothing else because so much of it is real. That's the thing. I think that's why it still stands up. And I can also say wholeheartedly, I now understand why they never made Terminator 3, as in Cameron, because he probably thought, what can I actually do? Like, do you know what I mean? What can I actually do to improve this? Like, in terms of the story as well feels done.
Like the whole there is no
it's-
fate but what we make, and then at the end of this, it's like, well, we've got rid of all the things from the Terminator, but then the next films go on the whole idea of, well, fate's inevitable, and actually we're always going to get screwed by AI. It's just a question of when, and if it's not 22nd of August 1997, which was the date I used to be scared of, it's going to be, it's something else, right? So and it kind of takes it away from this, but to be honest, it doesn't, because I think a lot of people just enjoy the first two and they don't even worry about the rest. And to be honest, I don't blame them.
And I will still urge people to skip Terminator 3, Terminator Genesis, Terminator Salvation, and go straight to... Is there another one I've missed?
No. Dark Fate feels more in line with this. And
it does.
In Cameron's eyes, that Dark Fate is the closest to his version of 3.
It's a good film. It's a good film.
It's good. But what I would
want to
say
rewatch
is...
it. You ready to rewatch it, John?
Yeah, I'll rewatch it.
Let's
what
do
I
it.
would say is, I think sometimes we critique Hollywood for not trying to do different things and like not taking a punt. Salvation, for love it or hate it, we're doing the future war, and they wanted to do a trilogy, and the idea was the first one is it's close to our timeline, so it's like no plasma weapons. Second one and third one will head into that territory.
Yeah.
So I love the fact they were trying to make it grittier, and I still think Salvation is far better than Genesis by a country mile.
I've not seen Genesis, and it's the only one I haven't seen.
Genesis is genuinely an awful film. Like it's categorically bad, and like people apparently on Fantastic Four set had T-shirts saying "At least we're not on Terminator Genesis." That is the rumor.
That's
and
hilarious.
if that is true, that's hilarious. Allegedly. Anyway, go on.
So just one last bit then, just obviously the end.
Sorry.
Like with the fight. And by the way, we've probably missed loads of stuff. Like I wanted to talk about the scene in the hallway when we kind of see them face off against each other and they're shooting each other, and you kind of see the differences between the Terminators. And
no quips as well.
Thrown
they're
through
silent.
a window. Yeah, they're silent. He gets thrown through a window again. I was going to talk about that, but look, we can't talk about every single scene. However, the ending, where we really see the power of the T-1000, the liquid metal, compared to just a robot, I guess. A really powerful robot. The
Cybernetic organism.
Cybernetic organism over living tissue. Ow! So yeah, he wouldn't do that because it's human. But when we see them two fight at the end, you do really see how good the T-1000 is. How he can he gets hit and it goes through his body, and then he pulls it out of his side, and he's just got loads of tricks up his sleeve.
He turns 180, he's flattened against the wall, then just mirrors himself the other way. And
when Arnie gets T-800 gets absolutely battered and his head's getting crushed, it's horrible. I used to hate that as a kid, and he gets that steel rod goes right
Slam
through
through
him,
him.
and then it goes with all the thunder and stuff. I'm like, he's done, he's dead.
That thunder looks more dated to me than anything else in the film. That's
It does.
the only thing I would say. It's weird. I just looked at it, I was like, oh.
And I found out when I was doing
Snob.
my research, I did not notice, but when the T-1000 imitates Sarah Connor, that is actually Linda Hamilton's twin sister.
Yeah, you were messaging me this. I was like, that's like 101 for me in terms
I
of
didn't know
Terminator
that.
trivia.
No,
I was
didn't know
having
that.
none of it, but yeah, go on.
So it wasn't a double or anything. It was literally Linda Hamilton's twin sister, as same as the security guard that the T-1000 kills in the institution is also a twin. I was just like, this is incredible. So that end bit when obviously they finally kill the T-1000, he goes in the lava and he does the thing that John mentioned earlier on, that thing, and we kind of have this last final bit between the three of them is truly where the film comes together, and the biggest, one of the biggest gut punches in movies is this scene, and it's when they're throwing in the chip and he's like, there's one more chip, and it's the one in his head and he has to go, and it's just heart-wrenching because it's the only father figure really John's
the 10-year-old
really
has had.
The 10-year-old has had in life, and it's the final bit when he gets lowered in, and John's like, I'll never forget that. I order you not to go. I order you not to go. And he's like, mission's done. I don't need to listen to you anymore, you little twat. So yeah, but that bit where he's like,
but also
crying.
he's following his programming, because if he doesn't kill himself, then he's not protecting John, because it means that
the chip's still there, the technology's still there. And as Dyson says earlier, it's like the stuff was so advanced and it gave us so many ideas. That final scene when it's got the music playing from Brad Fiedel and the thumb comes up the thumb comes up at the end. It's like, God, that's special, isn't it? Like, what a scene.
But can we spoil Dark Fate or not?
We can if you tell people to please.
A bit like when is this like when I'm on Helldivers when I announce that I'm doing something as I'm doing it rather than actually giving you pre-warning?
Yeah. So if we want to spoil Dark Fate, just maybe fast forward a couple of minutes. So what are you going to tell us about Dark Fate, John?
I'd skip ahead a minute. So, how upset would you be if you watched that and then realised that James Cameron, who slagged off everyone in Alien 3 for killing off Newton Hicks, decided that the start of Dark Fate is John being murdered about a week after this film takes place on a Caribbean island?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Crazy,
like,
isn't it?
You'd be fuming. But anyway, there we are.
It is crazy. But look, this is the films. This means films to me. You know, this is the film I've watched more than any other film probably in the world.
Yeah, it's up there.
And to me, this is just how it goes. You know, like this is the greatest kind of action film ever made, and I mean that, and it's not even close.
Can I just say also another thing about how this film was made from the cinematography aspect you sent? They said this film didn't have like a massively shallow depth of field, and what I mean by that is it was shot between f4 and f5, and they said the reason was so, you know, if you watch a Snyder film, like there's loads of stuff out of focus, and like that's his stylistic thing, which I also really like. But pre-digital, it would have been a nightmare to keep that in focus. Like, being the focus puller would have been really hard in the traditional way of how they monitored it. So by having an f4 and f5 where you see more in the scene at all times because less of it's blurred, it meant that when there was action, it was easier to keep it all in focus as they did it, so they didn't have to do multiple takes and repeat. Whereas in modern films, like, you don't worry about as much because digital cameras, have decent autofocus. On a film set, they won't have that, but what they have is a LiDAR system which will gauge the depth, and literally you'll have like color charts and graphs. There's videos about how basically like it's just digitally assisted to the point where it is easier than it was. I'm not saying it's easy, but like compared to the old school way.
Well, when we watched the film that I always remember where you were like jaw dropping was Possession. When he's going in and out, and you were like,
the rocking chair.
You were like, that's amazing focus pull, like, as in like the
poor bloke like doing it. Yeah,
the cinematography's like smashed that. But yeah,
that film's messed up. But
anyway, you can go back and listen to our Possession episode. John, what are we gonna do next? And sorry, we've got some questions. We have got some questions.
I was gonna say, we've got
loads of questions. So let's start off with this one then.
Do Terminator ones only, and then we'll save the Stallone ones for later.
Yeah, fine. So Sir Tone Reviews writes in for the first time in a little while, and he says, well, firstly, shout out to Peter Kent, Arnold's stunt double, for making him look awesome.
Correct.
Agree. Fantastic. What a guy. And Sir Tone Reviews says, where does T2 land in greatest sequels of all time? And so I was thinking about this, and can
you read the list he said though? Because I disagree with some of his list.
No, that's my list.
Oh, it's your list.
Yes, my list. Sorry.
So I disagree.
With it.
Okay, read your list out, and then we'll have a chat.
So we've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. No. By the way, So the list that I wrote was ideas, as in like films that I was thinking of.
Because you wrote on that list Die Hard 2 is one of the greatest sequels of all time. I was like, Die Hard 2 is not one of the greatest sequels of all time in my mind.
It's a great sequel, and Rennie Harlin will, like, he's going to not be happy with you. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, and Lord of the Rings Two Towers, Aliens, Die Hard 2, which is obviously the worst film on that list, Empire Strikes Back.
I still think Empire Strikes Back is probably the biggest leap in terms of everything. Actually, I don't know.
I don't think so.
Empire Strikes Back to this is very comparable, actually, to like the budget and the jump.
I would say this is. I don't think there is.
Alien to Aliens is actually, in terms of like how it's shot, I would argue that Aliens looks worse than Alien. but like, anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, it does. It does look
definitely
worse.
does on the 4K.
Yeah, and the Alien 3 looks the worst out of all of them in terms of special effects. Not in terms of cinematography, but yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Best looking bad film, said Roger Ebert, by the way. I saw it. I've never seen the Roger Ebert review, and it was like the best looking bad film I've ever watched, is what he said about
Alien 3.
Fincher's Alien 3.
That's well funny.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, yeah, I mean, best sequel, probably, I think it's just... Well, I've just been gushing about it for an hour, so I'd probably say it's number one.
It probably is Terminator 2, I'm not going to lie.
There's nothing else, really, that's those films that I mentioned, obviously, people are going to have preferences.
Terminator 2, Aliens, and... you just missed one.
Avatar: The Way of Water.
I'm sorry.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I think Empire Strikes Back is one of the greatest sequels of all time because it's the refined version of that Star Wars world. Again, another example of everything being perfectly executed.
Just
Stop
looking up at my
motion,
Blu-rays.
old school blue screen, like all of it. It's just bliss.
The Conjuring 2? No? Anyway, so yeah.
Batman v Superman.
I don't think so. But yeah, look, it's there. You know, it's there.
Cool.
So then, we've got another couple of ones here. Joe Kravick writes in and says, "Boob or bum?"
For Arnie, I mean, his pecs are impressive.
He's got an impressive pecs. Yeah, he's got a very impressive set of pecs.
Yeah, especially
Joe,
in 1991.
What is wrong with Joe? He's got something wrong with him, I think. Anyway, never mind. Look, the rest of the questions are kind of aimed at both of these action stars.
Yeah, so let's save them up.
So we will save them up and I'll kind of splice them through into this next film, which, as described earlier, is Cliffhanger from 1993, directed by the one and only Rennie Harlin.
We just got an emergency call. 5 climbers just ran off Cone Bluff.
I haven't climbed in months. You just lose the feel.
Maybe you mean the nerve.
Where's the helicopter?
What the hell's going on?
What are your names?
Tucker and Walker.
Well, Tucker and Walker, we're missing 3 bags.
Now, Rennie Harlin looks exactly how you'd imagine a guy called Rennie Harlin to look.
Do you know what's
cool
weird, though?
As shit.
Yeah, but how I always picture him is how he looked when he did the behind the scenes interview for the Alien DVDs in like
Long,
2001.
blonde hair?
No, it was short by
okay.
then, and
Okay.
and he looked more mature. But it's really funny how like it's a bit like in my head Fincher still looks as he looks at 28 years old because on the behind the scenes I've watched that many times. That's how he looked, and it's always a bit of a shock when I'm like, oh yeah, he doesn't look like that anymore. Anyway, Rennie Harlin, what a guy. So jokes aside, he did do Die Hard 2, which I don't think is the greatest sequel of all time, which is, as we said with the question we've had,
it's not,
but it's a very good action film.
It's a very good action
there's
film.
a lot of crossover with Die Hard 2 and this in terms of execution and like location. Snowy again. Love a bit of snow.
Do you know, it's funny because Rennie Harlin loves a bit of snow. He loves aeroplanes.
Yeah.
He loves helicopters, you know? And
so this film like made me realise how many other action films are probably inspired by it or reminded me of it. So like the opening heist in Dark Knight Rises reminded me very much of like the plane heist in this. Would you agree?
It's pretty much, it's not identical, but it's very
Similar.
very very similar. Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about the premise, because there'll be a lot of people that haven't seen this. This is starring Sylvester Stallone. This is a mid-air heist through the Rocky Mountains that goes horribly wrong when $100 million is scattered across the mountains in 3 suitcases. I wrote this myself. A group of terrorists land their plane and pretend to be stranded, subsequently getting Gabe Walker, played by Stallone, and his former friend Hal Tucker, played by Michael Rooker, to guide them to the briefcases across the treacherous terrain. Oh,
But what you missed was, at the start of the film, that Gabe has a bad experience, that it's a gone wrong... so you get your... By the way, the score for this is insane. You would never get like a score like this now. Like, it's this really romantic, lush score going... Da, 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 like cinematic
Trevor
mountain
Jones,
shots.
National Philharmonic Orchestra, is
just,
literally... And do you know what? It reminded me of quite a bit of Rambo as well, First Blood. Like, it's got that kind of like
Goldsmithian vibe.
Absolutely, yeah. So tell us about the beginning of this film.
Well, basically, Gabe is out on a rescue to his mate Hal Tucker, because Hal Tucker's met a girl for the first time on a date and decided to take her up a mountain she shouldn't go up. Sarah, played by Michelle Joyner. And guess what? The rescue goes wrong and Gabe is blamed, and then the events that Jamie talked about happens 8 months later. So you get a classic action film setting up the why he's moody throughout and like what's his motivation. But again, this era is great because there is starting to be some digital effects available, as we've just talked about in Terminator 2, which is 1991. But for the most part, it's still using like the old photochemical processes, but just like the better versions you'll see of it, because it's kind of towards the end of those. Another example I'd say of that would be Total Recall, which is like probably one of the last examples of a lot of those practical effects and how they're used, and the photochemical processes, and it's just really interesting. And I think Rennie Harlin's a really stylistic director. He reminds me of Snyder, and why I say that is the use of slow motion. So like he loves, like, there's multiple times people are shot in this film, as in like shot by a gun, but he mutes their score.
Yeah.
And like everything goes quiet, and it's just slow motion. So if you look on your phone, you're not even going to know what's happened, because it's just like it's like time slows down. This dramatic things happens. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a really different way of doing it. But he likes his big stunts, and he also likes, and this is what I love about this era. So Jamie and I were talking about how modern films were all flat looking because it's easier to match the CGI to. No such issue in this period. So you could light things however the hell you wanted. So you made really distinct choices. So nowadays things are shot to look like that. If there's a light in this room, that you're being lit by that light. So the light that the camera crew adds is to match that.
Yeah.
So it's called motivated light. Back in like this
John
time, like, people didn't care. It was just like, oh, every time the character's going to have a hair light, so they stand out from the background, and every time. You know, in the night sequences, it's pitch black and they're in the middle of a mountain range, but there's like these huge floodlights behind them at random points. You don't see the floodlight, but you see the massive kick off of these lights. And
Very
like,
The Thing. Reminded me of The Thing quite a lot.
But there's no, like, The Thing probably has more motivation for it because of the camp they're on. But this is like, there's no motivation. It just is what it is. It's a choice. It's cool. And like
it's cool. No, it is. It looks great, yeah.
And I love kind of like, that's kind of what I like about this era of filmmaking, is because you still did that. Like, the truth is now, like, I really like, so we were talking about what's a modern day example, and it's a question, but we'll go back over it later, which is like a modern example of like an action star. And I don't think they exist in the same way, but let's say Chris Hemsworth, and you take Extraction 1, which I quite enjoyed, but Extraction 1 looks like Civil War. Civil War looks like, and you can just go on a link back of like how they all basically look that way. And like even Snyder films, which like we love on this pod and have raved about many a time, they are also shot for that style to match the CGI to. But I feel like Snyder has a certain desaturated and high contrast look to make it all match up. Yeah. Which I feel is more of a choice than the muted colour tones of some of the Marvel pictures and things. But then when you watch a film like this, true. But when you watch films like this from this era, when like you made choices and they look great and you're not worrying about matching it up, it's just it looks how it looks. And it's great. It is good. It is great. And real stunts, like lots of like. Obviously, there's ones where they've been matted in, or like some are in studio and added to like plates and stuff. But there's also a lot of like people risking it, doing big stunts, like we talked about for those Bond films, like people jumping out of helicopters, or people. Well, just rock climbing in general is bloody dangerous, even with safety nets and stuff below. Like it's just very bouldering is not like a casual sport to take up. So yeah, it's really cool watching something like this. It felt like you were watching like a long Red Bull commercial, you know, and they do like the crazy challenges and stuff. But with some like heist action. If you like Air Force One, which used to be a belt of me, get off my plane. It's that era of movie
Harrison
making.
Ford. Do you know what? Good. It's crazy because you, this is probably one of the films from that era that I have seen the least. So I've definitely seen it a few times. And I was saying yesterday when I was watching it, because I watched both films yesterday, so they were pure fresh. And this, at the beginning of this film, when we have this situation happen with the female character Sarah, played by Michelle Joyner. Now they were actually up in the mountains. Stallone wasn't. So I watched this is really funny. I watched a little behind the scenes thing. Well, it wasn't behind the scenes. It was basically Michelle Joyner on a podcast talking about her experience on the film. She said that like Stallone wasn't very nice to her and didn't treat her very well because he was massively scared of heights. So he didn't go in the helicopter. He didn't go up on the mountain. Well, he was up on, obviously had to go up on the mountains a little bit, but like wasn't doing any of like anything to do with stunts or anything. And so this bit at the beginning where like before this 4,000 feet fall from Sarah who dies right at the beginning, so it's fine.
It's the setup for the entire film.
Yeah, his stunt double was doing all of that. She had a bit of a stunt double there. But yeah, he was just like quite scared of heights, which I definitely would have been as well. So it would have been a really bad
I couldn't
film.
do those heights.
It would have been quite a bad
makes
film.
you feel queasy watching on a TV. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I was saying that like I haven't seen this film loads, but I reckon I've seen the intro loads of times. So back in the day when I'll tell you when I used to stay at my nan's house and we used to watch the 9 o'clock film on a Saturday night.
It'd be on.
Basically, yeah, it'd be on for, you'd probably see the first 45 minutes with ads. So you'd get like adverts every 15 minutes for like 3 minutes. And I'd probably seen like the first 45 minutes of Cliffhanger loads of times. And I remember really distinctively that red buckle that is the problem, and that's the thing that like breaks. And I remember, I was like, oh god, like I remember this so vividly. And then after that, I don't remember nothing, because I'm pretty sure Trevor McDonald would come on for the news at 10.
And then you'd be asleep.
I'd be asleep, yeah, because I was a kid. So that's kind of like where I was with this, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. But I was thinking, so the budget of this was 70 million, which is still a decent budget. Yeah, it's quite a lot. But it did, again, 255 million at the box office. Like Stallone was like big star at the time. But what is it about these 90s action thrillers that make them feel so raw compared to films today, like John was alluding to? Like, you had, like, in the 90s, like Demolition Man, Speed, Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout, Ronin, Universal Soldier, Leon, Desperado. And I do think that...
That's lost.
Pardon?
That's lost now. They don't exist.
They do not make... Yeah, they don't exist anymore, and they don't make films like that anymore. And the reason, and it's from what John said, and it's just because like there is a lot of, sadly, like CGI in the way they're lit, and they rely on CGI for like lots of different things. Where
I think it'll be unionising safety and stuff as well. I think there'll be a lot of things that people used to do that you can't now do.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
and if they're out on a mountain doing all sorts, like the great thing about Cliffhanger is that a lot of it is looks real, and Stallone's stunt double is amazing. Like the way they've cut and they've edited this like so well to make it look. I didn't once notice a stunt double in this film.
No.
One thing I will mention is like, so Rennie Harlin storyboarded everything in this film. 2,000. He said he did around 2,500 illustrations.
You can tell though, because they're very specific frames, like that shot with the buckle and whatever. It's Hitchcockian almost, that opening. You
can imagine it drawn and on a storyboard, and even when like you got the landscape with the small tiny man. Stallone like climbing the mountain, like it's a really good looking film. It's a really interesting film, and again, we just don't get it anymore. One thing I will mention, we don't ever go into the second film like massively, but John Lithgow, right? Now,
good baddie, because he's always an old man in the things I see him in now. Because he's in Stellar as the granddad, isn't he, and stuff like that.
Do you know what? I mostly see him as a baddie.
How do you?
He's been in so many things as a bad guy. Like honestly, like. He's in a film called Ricochet with Denzel Washington, when Denzel Washington was like very early on in his career, 1991, so it was just 2 years before this, and I think that's obviously what inspired him to go and do this. And he's obviously the bad guy in Dexter season 3, which is an amazing season, like the Trinity Killer. But with this, like he's absolutely chewing the scenery, like, and doing this crazy like over.
You want to kill me, don't you, Gabe?
Yeah, you want to kill me? Well, get a number and get in line.
Get in line.
Yeah, all this kind of stuff, and like he's amazing. Like, and he's got so many like little lines like that. Like he's what is it? He says something else as well. Like, oh yeah, so Hal Tucker, he's like. He's like, you son of a bitch, you said you wouldn't kill him. And John Lithgow's like, sue me. And like, it's got like, it's peppered throughout. And it really reminded me of a bit in Ricochet, like that film, where like, the film is, I've spoke about Ricochet like a few episodes ago, but it's like so out of pocket. It's absolutely wild. But he comes out with the nastiest, most vicious line I've ever heard. And it's basically like, he plays a character called Earl Talbot Blake. And he says, Pork, back off, or else she's going to need a paper bag over her head when her boyfriend F's what's left of her. And I was just like, I was watching it, and I was like, that's like one of the nastiest lines I've ever heard. Like, so yeah, John Lithgow just pulls no punches. He's wild, like, and he's just really, really enjoying himself. And I think that he kind of really makes this film, and there's a lot of actors in this film that it's full of actors that were from that '90s period, obviously. But you've got Craig Fairbrass as well, who's obviously now stars in the Rise of the Foot Soldier series. Like he's like the main character in that, who's fantastic, and he's literally doing what Craig Fairbrass always does, and it's like pure Cockney. And yeah, it's just like when you watch this film, you'll see so many familiar faces from that era, and it's just a romp. Like that's the way I'll describe it. It's just a real good, action film, and I love it so much. I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention that we were talking about stunts and stuff like that, and real stunts, and how dangerous they are. This film's in the Guinness Book of World Records because it has the most expensive aerial stunt ever performed. So the stuntman Simon Crane was paid $1 million to cross between the two planes at 15,000 feet. So those two planes, that was actually happening. Two planes. The insurance company refused to insure the stuntman for it. So Sylvester Stallone offered to reduce his own fee for the movie by the amount that the stunt cost to produce. So in order for the film to be made. So
that's mad.
Yeah, crazy. So they had to do it in the United States as the stunt was illegal in Europe, where most of the film was shot. And Crane couldn't get inside the second plane, but the good editing gives the appearance that he does. So how insane is that?
Yeah, I mean, this amount of safety involved with it, maybe it wasn't worth it, but like it is just incredible to watch these stunts when that's the case. I said it earlier about the old Bond films, same thing, like the mad stuff they were doing and just being able to capture it. It's just
well, look,
amazing.
It's it's
tangible and real.
It's wonderful, really, and I've said it loads of times, and I'll keep saying it. We just don't get films like this anymore. So yeah, look,
it's really good fun. I mean, that 90s era is a bit of a blind spot to me. I haven't seen many. Like, I don't know why. Just
we've got so
much.
Yeah, we've got a lot to watch. Then usually,
I still haven't seen Con Air. I haven't seen.
Con Air's all right. It's not as good as the name. Like, as in, it's got a big name, but it's not amazing. It's good.
Face Off was the one I watched. I was like, this
Face Off's
nuts.
actually good.
Great.
Yeah, wild. John Woo.
But anyway,
yeah. I mean, we could watch The Last Boy Scout, that kind of stuff. Like, there's some really. Have you seen Demolition Man? Wesley Snipes.
Yes, we watched it together many years ago, but I can't remember it at all.
We covered it on the pod. Anyway, right, so a few little... maybe. We've got a few little questions here then. So, Kims.horror.escape writes in and says, who is the best all-time action star? So, yes. I mean, the people that come to mind for me are obviously Stallone, they are Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it would be... probably Bruce Willis, really, because they're in such big kind of films. Like Wesley Snipes.
Didn't Diesel try to take it on, didn't he, afterwards? Like
Forget about it.
No, but he was trying with like Triple X and stuff, wasn't he? He was trying to launch it.
Yeah, dreadful. I mean, the ones that come to mind for me would be Keanu Reeves, which obviously he's done the Matrix films and the John Wick films, but I just, you'd argue that I would say he's not a very good actor, and so. But nor is Schwarzenegger. Obviously Harrison Ford. He's been in lots of action films with the Indiana Jones films and that kind of thing. But then the other, like Kevin Costner, Wesley Snipes. But to be honest, for me, the big three are Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis. They're the big three action stars for me. I don't think there's anyone. Mel Gibson as well, but. Still, Will Smith. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like rattling off some names here. I don't think there's anyone really that touches.
Tom Cruise, not even mentioned him.
Tom Cruise.
It's a different kind of thing. Like Stallone and Arnie were like 80s excess. What's the excess of a man? If you had the most excessive physique of a man, what would you be? And it's like, okay, Stallone or Arnie. And I always argue Arnie was probably the better physique of the two. Like Arnie in Terminator 1.
He was a bodybuilder on steroids.
Yeah, but there's nothing comparable to Arnie in T1. Like he's just an insane figure. And as amazing as he is in T2, it's still nothing on that. That first film, he's just a tank.
I don't think there's.
Absolute machine.
He is, yeah. He's an absolute monster. But he was doing like Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer around the time of Terminator as well. I don't think if you look at the filmographies of Stallone and Arnie, there is. I don't really think there's anyone close to the amount of action films that them two have been in. Like really,
No.
like, you've got obviously. I'm thinking of more like Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's more of a martial artist. But really, when you think about it, like it's them two. Like them two are the ones. And who do I prefer out of them? I mean, I think that Stallone's a much better actor. When you look at him in Rocky. It's his best role. Like, he's amazing. Like if you look at him in Demolition Man, he's a lot of fun. And then he went on to do stuff like Tango and Cash and Ants, which is like hilarious. And then if you think about alternatively, like when you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, he's done some of the most iconic like sci-fi action films of all time.
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, Total Recall, The Running Man, Terminator, and then he's also had his comedy side to his career as well. If you're on hardcore action, you'd argue that it's Stallone, but
Yeah,
I would say that
I've not watched as many as you. I struggle. I've not even really seen many of the Rambo films. I don't think I've even seen one all the way through.
Really? No, they're really good films. I would say that I prefer Arnold Schwarzenegger. I really wouldn't be able to choose. I'm so sorry, but it is out of those two. I would not be able to choose. And yeah, it's if you look at just the sheer quantity of like the amount of action films have been in, it's got to be them two. But on an alternative note, Kim's.horror.escape gives a second question. Favorite current action star? Do we have them as much today as we did back in the day?
So we talked about this, didn't we?
Patch also writes in and says, who are the modern equivalent of Stallone and Arnie, or have times changed so much that their archetype is too outdated now?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yes, so Chris Hemsworth.
I feel like he's one who's done like Snow White and the Huntsman, hench, Thor, hench, Extraction 1 and 2.
Just shite that. Yeah, I mean, Extraction was like
1 was good.
No, they were both good. No, but I mean, like a lot of those other films you just mentioned are not very good. The modern action star for me, who I think of, would be like The Rock, like Dwayne Johnson.
Oh God, that's a very good shout, actually.
But I also
Adkins.
think Scott Adkins. Yeah, he's been in some crackers. Like Avengement is like legitimately great. The problem with that is that they're not even on the. Dwayne Johnson is like in a lot of crap. Like he's in so much crap and films that are just not good at all that you just can't even see past
Red
that.
One, whatever it is.
Liam Neeson for one point was in like
loads
Taken, of really
and
good
then
stuff.
Rip-offs of Taken.
Loads of rip-offs of Taken. But I think the biggest action star. No, it's funny, isn't it? The ones that come to mind that aren't really doing as much anymore would be like Jason Statham, Will Smith.
Jason Statham Transporter series, and then he had Crank and the shark one. I've forgotten the name of the Meg.
The Meg, yeah.
Yeah,
you have those, but
not really, not in the same way.
It's not. It's not in the same way. So, like for sure, like when like their modern equivalents would be someone like Tom Hardy or like Jason Statham, who I said like they are the modern equivalents, but they I think the last kind of star that people go and see now would have been a Will Smith, or would have been the person that I just mentioned,
Tom
Cruise. Yeah,
Mission Impossible films.
They're like the last remaining like true film stars, because now it's, as we've mentioned before on the pod, like it's all about characters now.
IP,
You know, it's about the actual character of the person that you're going to see. Iron Man, for example, which is.
Yeah, I was going to say, you say that, but then Robert Downey Jr. was such a draw that he's come back. But anyway, that's a different chat.
He's a big draw, like, but when you compare him to like other people, like I think that like
Mel Gibson back in the day or whoever.
Yeah, no one compares to the two in the two films that we've covered today. Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson. They were huge. If they were in a film, you were just going to go and see it anyway. Like that's just the
gone
way
now.
It has
that
gone.
Doesn't happen now.
It's completely gone. But whenever you see Stallone in a film, like you'd put it on. You'd be like, oh, it's got Stallone in it. Like it's probably going to be good fun. Like, but I just think that's completely gone now. I do think Jason Statham has a little bit of that, and I think that people that love people like Scott Adkins and the likes would just watch any Scott Adkins film, like Michael B. Jordan. He's probably another one you could kind of mention. But yeah, no, it's a shame really. It has changed a little bit, but I'm just trying to think. Like it's not that anymore. Like it's something completely different. But anyway, it's a shame because like you see stuff like John Wick 17 and it's just not very good. So Patch says, who had the most movie career kills out of Stallone and Arnie? I mean, obviously
I've seen the sheet, sorry.
Yeah, so
I should have not looked.
No, it's all right. Arnie has 369 kills on his screen, according to Google, and Stallone has 267. So Arnie has a lot more, which is odd to me actually, because
Rambo.
Well, I think it would be all mostly down to Rambo, because those films, in the third one, he basically takes on the whole of the like Middle East. It's ridiculous
Right.
on his own. It's crazy. And then just the last couple of questions then. So I'm really interested. Well, one from Patch. Your mission. You have to take. I think John's maybe not seen.
This is a Jamie question.
That many films.
Nope.
Your mission. You have to take out a terrorist stronghold in the mountains. You have 5 minutes of time with any 3 of Arnie's and any 3 of Stallone's. Who are you taking? Now, I guess how long have I got? 5 minutes. So for Stallone's, the 3 here. I'm just looking at his filmography now. The 3 of his team I would take would be. I would definitely take Wesley Snipes, because he's just a killer from Demolition Man. I would take Kurt Russell from Tango and Cash because of his career as Snake Plissken. And then one more person I would take. I might take. Well, we've got the Expendables here, haven't we? So I could just rob out of the Expendables, really. So yeah, if I was going to take one of the Expendables, I'd probably take.
Hold on. I thought the idea was any 3 of Arnie's and any 3 of Stallone's, as in the characters they've played in different films. So you take like, Arnie from Predator 1.
Right, if that's the case, then okay,
and then
fine.
you take Arnie from Terminator because you literally have a killing machine, and then pick number
Arnie
3
from Commando. So yeah, I would obviously take Arnie from Commando. Then I would take Arnie from Predator, and then I would probably take Arnie from, well, I guess Terminator. I guess it's got to be, isn't it? And then if I was taking Stallone's 3 characters, well, then that changes everything. So I'd take Stallone from. I wouldn't take him from Cliffhanger because he's a bit useless, really. Like he's just a
Gabe.
Yeah, exactly. I'd take Stallone's Judge Dredd.
Yes,
that'd be fun.
yeah.
I'd take his
Rambo
character
3 because he took on the entirety of the Middle East. You said so. Was he good?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So, but would it be as good as the newer Rambos, like Last Blood? Or you take him in Rambo 3 actually because he's still physically capable. In Rambo Last Blood, he's probably 60 now. So in that film, so yeah, Rambo 3 is like he's gone for. But would you want the PTSD? Would you want Rambo 3 PTSD that he's had from Rambo 1 and 2? I don't know. It's hard.
I've not seen them.
You'd probably take Rambo from maybe Rambo 2 because he's not quite as damaged as Rambo 3. And then maybe the last one, who would it be? Well, I mean, is saying Sylvester Stallone here is in Men in Black. What?
As a cameo, probably.
Is he? Well, I don't remember him.
I don't remember it.
Anyway, so yeah, the final one I'd take him in would probably be this Assassins. That was a pretty good film. Yeah, maybe take him in that. So there you go. There's the 3 characters. Thanks for putting me back on track. And then movie scenes and shit to end the pod. Which movies would be better if Arnie and Sly swapped?
So didn't they do a thing where like they'd tell one that they were going for a role, then they wouldn't, to make the other one go in a stinker and stuff? Wasn't that like a thing back in the day? Like between
them two were feuding. I say feuding, like so competitive with each other.
Like Vin Diesel and The Rock.
It was like if Stallone was big, like Arnie had to get bigger. If Stallone killed like 87 people in a film, Arnie would go and kill 90. That's what they were doing. There's an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, quite a recent one, of him kind of saying what it was like back in the 80s, of like how they would both try and one up each other, which is really interesting. I think which movies would be better if Arnie and Sly swapped? Now, this is probably a controversial decision, but having Arnie in Judge Dredd would be pretty cool because he'd be like just a beastie, like. But then I do love the I am the law kind of thing. Like,
I don't think it would save the film anymore. So I think that film's got amazing production design, just poorly executed. But yeah.
Do you know what? Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So actually, because I do believe Arnie Arnie is way funnier than Stallone, so that would be great if we seen that happen. And then it's really funny because obviously you've got Last Action Hero, where in that alternative universe you've got Stallone playing the Terminator, which obviously I would never have that. What about you, John? While I just have a little look at Arnie's filmography.
I mean, I think with Sly being the better actor, it would have been interesting to see him in something like Predator. In that group, I don't know. But it just feels wrong. It's like an alternate universe thing.
They all feel wrong, don't they?
It's just like they're so aligned to those roles.
Probably. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look at all of these. And I just
Can you imagine Arnie as the boxer, as being Rocky?
No, I couldn't.
Do you know what I mean?
Because imagine Arnie versus Dolph Lundgren as the Russian. Like it'd be like just be like the immovable object meets whatever the other guys. I'm just looking at this now and I'm just like, I don't know about any of these really. Like I mean, it'd be funny to see Sylvester Stallone in Pumping Iron playing Arnold Schwarzenegger in the documentary. That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, I'm looking at these now. He's done a lot of shit as well, hasn't he?
I mean, I'd like to see Sly and Conan the Barbarian having a bad time. And there's one where it's that film that's deleted, but you can still watch on YouTube, where Arnie's like going around New York dressed as like Goliath or something. Have you seen it?
No, that's a real film. That's his first film. That was his first ever film.
What's it called?
Something Hercules in New York.
There we go.
That's his first
ever
film.
Get Sly in that.
So I'll tell you what I would like to see. I would like to see Sly in The Running Man, because I would love to see Sly's attitude in The Running Man, and I love the way Stallone runs. He's got such a good run. He invented the Tom Cruise run as Stallone.
I'll be honest, I probably would have preferred Total Recall without it being Arnie as well.
Do you know what? They're just both fantastic. I just imagine him like delivering them lines. Like it'd just be great. But yeah, I mean, God, what a filmography they've both got. What a fantastic pod, John. I've really enjoyed myself tonight.
It's been two banging films, both of which are easily available from wherever. Prime. Actually, you'll find that if you are a UK listener, Cliffhanger is currently free on ITVX. So there you go. And if you want to watch Terminator 2, it is included in Amazon Prime membership if you have it. So there you go. Not a bad recommendation.
Not bad. And then we started the new year off with an absolute bang, and so we're obviously going to we'll probably have a little episode of some kind, and then after that I would imagine we're going to have Jane on to talk. I need this month, so from now we should have an episode in between, but I need this month to just catch up on the last few 2024 releases, and so I can like build a really comprehensive. I've done well this year actually with 2024 films. I managed to watch 230 films this year, which is really good. I was really impressed with myself, which is the most since COVID. So I don't know. Maybe I've just prioritised it a little bit more. I've been watching a little bit more at the weekends, but then and after that, we're hopefully we'll have a YouTuber on to talk about physical media or something or other. So yeah, that's going to be, if we do manage to get him on, it would be really good. But I've spoke to him already. He's really nice, so it'd be good to get him on. And then yeah, John, I didn't even mention that at the beginning of the pod that we've got t-shirts for sale, eh?
We have.
Bloody hell. T-shirts. MoviesInAPodshell.sumupstore.com. You can go and order one of our brand new VHS t-shirts. It's for £18, pre-shrunk cotton, responsibly sourced, high quality, none of that Fruit of the Loom pish.
Check out Movies in a Podshell on Instagram, and you can actually see the video of them being made as well, which is really cool.
Handmade.
Some people might not even know how t-shirts are made, so I thought it was quite interesting.
High quality t-shirts are made in this process, but you can just get random machines making vinyl shite. But we don't do that. We're properly screen printed t-shirts. They cost us quite a lot, but obviously, yeah. Anyway,
it's all good fun.
John, where can they find you?
At jcb.video. I nearly said Movies in a Podshell. Sorry.
Well, you can find him at jcb.video on his FX3, shooting some videos. Is that right?
No, but it's fine.
FX30.
FX30 with an A7S3.
Yeah, boy.
The dream.
Yeah, he loves it. It's the dream. It's the dream camera. So yeah, this is me putting my iPad away, so I'm ready. I've had my cup of tea. I can't have another one because it'll make me awake all night. Please go on YouTube, find us, Movies in a Podshell, all one word, Tony, and you can give us a thumbs up, you can give us a subscribe. It really, really helps us out. help us get monetized. And you can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, which is obviously my preference now because it's that HD baby. And you can find us pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, as long as you type in Movies in a Pod Show. This has been episode 88. I can't even believe it. And we're going to be hitting episode 100 this year, which is so exciting. And we're going to have hopefully some fun episodes there for you. So yeah, John, I guess probably say goodbye or something.
See ya.
See ya.